This meeting will start with word of office now from the order. Please rise for the sake of the pledge of allegiance. After which, all the call, I'd like to yield to Pastor Butler to lead the word of prayer, and we will observe a moment's silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Father, thank you. We come to you in the name of Jesus, recognizing that you are the creator and sustainer of life, that you are the source of truth and wisdom and good communication. Lord, we thank you for your blessings on our community, on this region, on our state. Lord, we want to call out to you this evening for your continued blessings. And that, Lord, all that we do here this evening would be honoring to you, and that you would help us to lift up Jesus in our lives. We love you. We praise you. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
All right, you have before you a copy of the written agenda. Any proposed revisions to the agenda? Any proposed revisions to the agenda?
Alderman Walker, I'd like to remove item 11B, 2B from the agenda.
11B, 2B, that is the discussion and consideration of an appeal of a recommendation by the Planning and Zoning Commission for RZ 16.01, a request for the rezoning of two parcels located along University Drive from T6 to T5 with the parcel numbers 117M-00-194 and 117M-00-193. Alderman Walker, is that your proposed provision?
Yes.
Do I hear an objection? Any objection? Any objection?
Just a minute.
Yes.
Alderman Walker, since this is an appeal, are you doing this at the panel?
Yes. Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Saying none, it has been removed from the agenda. Alderman Walker, do you have further proposed provision? Further proposed provisions from the members of the board. Alderman Carter.
Department Business 11B1A, I'd like to move this consent.
11B1A, that is the discussion and consideration of the approval of travel request for Code Enforcement Officer Jeff Lyles to attend Mississippi Association of Code Enforcement Education Conference from March 16th through March 18th in Ridgewood, Mississippi, at a cost not to exceed $700. Alderman Carter, that's your proposed provision, because that matter on consent.
Yes.
Any objection?
Mayor, I object to this matter on consent.
All right, with the objection, that matter will remain on the regular agenda. Alderman Carter, do you have any further proposed provisions?
No.
Any further proposed provisions from the members of the board? Any further proposed provisions? Any further proposed provisions? Seeing none, motion to approve the agenda as revised is in order. Motion has been made by Alderman Little. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Little, you wish to speak on there. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is consideration of the minutes of the January 19th, 2016 meeting of the Mayor Board of Aldermen. Motion has been made by Alderman Little to approve of the January 19th, 2016 minutes as mayor and board of aldermen of the city of Starkville, Mississippi, incorporating any and all changes recommended by the city attorney, otherwise as presented. Alderman Little, is that your motion? Do I hear a second? Motion has been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Little, do you wish to speak on the matter? Discussion. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. The next matter before you is announcements and comments by the mayor and the board. I have no comments this evening. Are there any comments from the board? Alderman Vaughn.
Yes, sir. Mr. Holland, please. Karen, Mr. Holland, thank you guys so much. You playing the piano, cranking, singing. Y'all really made it a day and information on so much. God bless you.
I didn't know you played the piano.
I know she's saying.
Oh,
Mayor, let me add on to that because all the bond I can do. On Saturday morning, Chief and and Mr. Peters, I received a telephone call that YouTube were on YouTube. And these were my words. I said, what in the world have they done? So as it turned out, that I went there and looked, and I noticed that you two were at Carrington Nursing Home, and I did not know that you could sing. Mr. Peters, I did not know that you could sing and play the piano. And whereas you all were doing a wonderful job and seemed like the residents were enjoying, this is my advice to you. Please make sure that you keep your daytime job.
Further comments from the members of the board? Any further comments? Any further comments? Any further comments? Seeing none, we'll now move to citizen comments. This time, any citizen wishing to make a comment may do so by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Change in the movement act is talking about 7. Like recognize, like on the bond and on the wall. Sometimes we had some, a while back, 9 pounds of beef. And the bees that way from that. Citizens, we don't know where it's coming from, but Citizen Ward 7, we would like for you to, whatever the, we would like to see. We appreciate our Ward 7, whatever you would like to see. Also the park owners are still where they still making them on real time how can you tell the difference. On Lafayette Street was the church and the police station because extended out so and it's hard for the people to pass. We have a pothole all in the same area. And on North Montgomery, we have young people that is not part of the gang law, but we have good food running.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. Further citizen comments?
Today, I'm Julie Brown. I have an office on Main Street for 20 years now. And I'm here to ask the board's support in the resolution that we presented regarding parking downtown. Our downtown's grown tremendously. It's one of the being a small town that actually has a parking problem. But it has come to the point where we are asking the board to take a look in the packet to enforce a 2-hour parking, I guess, time on May 8 to 7 on weekdays, and delineating the streets and the 2 accept a lot of the process. So we'd like to thank you very much for taking that into consideration. I think it'll really help our downtown do better, and it's just, we're just like the other big cities that more than Oxford and so forth. So thank you very much for your consideration.
You may.
Ms. Hewlett, just want to ask one question about the ordinance. Is there any business that has any objection to the removal of enforcement from Saturdays?
Oh, I don't know,
Not that I know it, I'm saying the enforcement process is going to be from
it
8
is
a.m.
Saturday.
to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Right.
My question is there anybody who opposes the elimination of the Saturday enforcement?
I don't know that that was discussed with the meeting, I'll be honest with you. And I would hate to speak on that because I'm closed Saturday, so I'd rather defer to somebody that has a retail shop.
But as far as you know, everyone's in favor of the proposal.
Yes, everyone in the city and
Thank
needs to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Further citizen comments?
Mayor Moore, Cynthia from Ward 1. I'm here today to pretty much send my thanks to Chief Nichols and his staff. I started the water project for the flood issues back in January, around January 23rd. Chief Nichols got a hold of the idea, he took it and ran. His staff was, they did a really good job. We took showed off this afternoon, actually about an hour ago. And we got the truck filled, so I just want to, say thank you guys for allowing Chiefs to partner with me and get the water project off the ground, and we have a truck head there now. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. And for those of you that don't know, Ms. Wilson operates a trucking company, and she offered to transport free of charge a truckload of water from Starkville, Mississippi to Blunt, Michigan, if the community could help coordinate the donation of water. And Chief Nichols spearheaded the city's effort and community outreach effort. And I had the pleasure this afternoon, or actually this morning, of attending a press conference of the old City Hall courtroom full of water set to go on a truck. And as of this afternoon, I saw they were visibly loading it on the truck. So thank you, Chief, and thank you so much, Ms. Wilson.
My name is Paula Mabry. I'm in Ward 6, and I'm speaking about Starkville Community Theater and the parking situation. I know that you all have tried to come up with a good plan, and I appreciate your spin on this. But our audiences generally come and enjoy eating downtown. And we can tell them not to eat downtown when they come to a show. But the shows start around 7:30, but they can start taking their seats at 7. If they come to eat, then they're going to get a ticket. And we've had that happen. And we pay bills, and or either it's been excused at that point. I don't know how that's been worked out. But is there any way that we can work something out with that? Yes.
Ms. Mayor, that was spoken to during the meeting of the Starkville Main Street Association. That was one thing they were very mindful of, and they were thinking that most folks, when they come to a play, and get there around 5 or shortly thereafter, give them time to eat, and do whatever else walking around they may do. At 7 o'clock, they're not going to be buying tickets.
Okay, so
that was
okay.
kept in mind when we were discussing this.
Okay, so
Should not have any.
we shouldn't have any problem on, usually our shows start on Thursday night. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for working that out.
Thank you, Ms. Mabry.
Thank
I also
you.
know Ms. Mabry was my high school drama teacher.
Yes.
As such, she was one of the first people to teach me to address the podium and an audience. So for those of you that get tired of listening to my voice drone on and on in this meeting, you can thank me for it.
Good evening, I'm Jamie Bachman, I'm the Executive Director of Volunteer Starkville. I'm here to speak on behalf of our organization. We're on the business night under Department of Business, Community Development, item 2H, for the discussion and approval of the budget minutes and with report to approve and services for participation along the city department. This will be our 4th year hosting this event. So very popular community event, educational for children learning how our communities service vehicles work, and it's a great vehicle for my organization. Provides about overall with all the support from in-kind services and so forth. It's probably about a fifth of our matching funds for our grant that brings federal money into our community to support all the services. So I would greatly appreciate your support on services and support from the city. Once again.
Thank you, Ms. Bachman. Further citizen comment?
My name is Amber, and I'm a member of the Starkville City Council, and we would just like to come tonight to thank the Board of Aldermen for everything they've done for the council. Currently, right now, we're working on planning the League Summit for all of the mayors of the council in the state of Mississippi, and that's going to take place in February.
Thank you, Ms. Burton. Do we have other mayors of the council participants in the audience tonight? Could you please stand?
Ms. Carter, are you wanting to step back from Big C? Did you page last month?
Yes, sir.
Welcome back to Starkville.
Thank you.
On the way.
Ms. Burke, yes, sir. I heard through the grapevine that you and the rest of the mayor and council members will be hosting some Columbus folks, next week.
Yes, ma'am.
Aldermen
Yes.
do a great job because they did a great job last year.
Thank you.
Thank you, I look forward to attending. Thank you so much.
My name is Solomon Grandwood, Bill Shaker, I'm engineering planner. This past week, we had the opportunity to serve on a team that participated in 3 public input sessions for the upcoming Parks and Rec Comprehensive Master Plan. And first of all, I just want to thank the park staff for helping out with that. Also, any of you that attended, thank you for the feedback. But what I wanted to share with you tonight is the feedback that we got from the consultants that were in town. We had an opportunity to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner 3 days in a row here. They really enjoyed their time in Starkville, spoke very highly of our culinary scene. But one of the greatest compliments they offered is what you all couldn't see and what the participants couldn't see, is they travel all over the region doing things like this. And one of the things they were most impressed with were the way that our community worked together, even in points of conflict or disagreement, the way that we were able to speak to each other kindly and professionally, and that we're really focused on the future of our community. It's not something they would share during the meetings, and the public may not see because they came at different nights. But overall, throughout the week, they were very impressed with how our citizens and staff handled themselves. So I want to pass that along to you.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Bruce, if we got.
Mayor and Board, I just wanted to kind of reiterate what they were talking about downtown and parking hours. You know, this is something we've worked on for years and years and years. It's a great thing that you have a problem. I hope that we continue to make the problem worse. But in the meantime, what we're trying to do is not to ticket customers. We welcome customers and wish they could shop all day, but it's kind of a pattern across America. We're not the only one. We're not inventing the wheel. That the best way to keep the most available parking spaces we can open is to keep employees and employers off the street. And I know you may look at us and say, looks like you can handle that well. It's more difficult than you think. Some of us smaller businesses, yes, we can handle that. There are others that have multiple shifts and multiple employees and try as they may, and they do try, threaten people with their jobs and this, that, and the other. They literally can't police 20 people coming at 10, and 20 more coming at 2:30 or 3, and 20 more coming at 6:30 or 7. Where are they? Where are they going? So it's not just here. It's across America. It's kind of 2-hour thing is the thing. You know, we had visited, we being the Main Street Board and our Main Street Director, we couldn't be here tonight to talk about a statewide position that she got appointed to. Visited with the theater, and we determined that these hours should not impact the theater. As David stated, it was one of our greatest concerns that we not impact the historical community theater we're so proud of, or any other industry like that. It's really designed to be a daytime thing. If you get off work, or even if you don't work, you go downtown 5:15, you won't be there 2 hours at 7 o'clock, and there won't be any tickets written after 7. So, and obviously you can't write every ticket at 7 and then leave the job at 7. So, you know, we felt like we could work with that, and we hoped that that would not be an issue. So I just wanted to kind of make a statement in that regard. But that's kind of what it's about, and the more places we can free up, the more sales we'll have, the more sales tax we hope, and the more streets, the more buildings. We can do more improving and perhaps bring in add more tax dollars. Yeah,
I have a couple questions for you. One, do you feel that 2 hours is the best time slot there to be an hour for the benefit of y'all or 3 for the customer? How do you feel about that?
Well, once again, it's something we've discussed over the years. It's not the first time or the second time, and it's something that we've kind of gone to other communities, and the 2 hours just seems to be the best deal. You know, there will be people who will get to park 3 and 4 hours because of just the nature. They pull in a space where an officer may have just marked that area, and by the time he gets back around, it's another hour, so they're tired to get marked for an hour. So you see what I'm saying? So if you stretch it out to too far, pretty soon you're half a day, and people move the car at lunch, or this, that, and the other, and it's just one thing and another. So it's kind of been determined that 2 hours is the best thing. 1 hour is just not quite enough. I mean, you be over an hour at lunch. Sometimes if you go in when they're busy, you know what I'm saying? It's just not. But once again, it's a great problem to have. What if we were up here in empty spaces that couldn't fill it? Okay. So, like I said, my goal is to make it worse.
Have y'all considered employee decals like an apartment building uses?
We have. Once again, I can't tell you all the things we've gone through. There are so many people, and they drive different vehicles. We back one time years ago, when one of our emergencies not unfortunately not with us anymore, we talked about reserving spaces in the parking lot. But then you got people who are off a day, and you just wasted. It's just not practical. But there's just so many people that come in different vehicles, or it's just, I don't think that we could make that work. Then somebody still got money.
And I'd like to use this platform. This one thing this board has done is approved the new cafe parking lot design. In the next few months, within the year, you'll see that restripe should be easier in entrance and exit. So, I mean, I guess start getting the word out that that's going to be coming in the next few months.
Well, and I'll tell you some other things. We're working, I don't think this is a secret, we're working with the university, and we're inventorying how many parking spaces we have, not only street parking, but church, bank, everything, private parking, everything. How many employees we have in downtown. We're looking at lighting at night so that people feel safer to go around the corner and park at the old Van Annenham or the behind the Korean church back there, or at Reese's at night. I mean, we're looking at all those kinds of things to make it even better. Because sometimes it's as simple as lighting. And on the night now, it's in the summer, it's not bad. But you got to remember, sometimes around here it's dark at 4:30. So, but there's all kinds, and David's been privileged. He just be up there amongst some of those Main Street things. I think he would agree that we really have tried our best to impact everybody, but employees, employers, as much as we can possibly impact them and make it work.
Mayor, Steve, you know why they did not include Lampkin Street from Jefferson up to Main? So Washington Street goes down to Jefferson for the enforcement, and Jackson Street goes down to Jefferson for the enforcement, but Lampkin says from Main just to Lafayette and back and forth for a Baptist. And I know there's two barber shops and a beauty shop going down the hill there that often complain to me, particularly the barber shop where I get my hair cut, that people employees park in front of their shops.
To be honest with you, Scott, I wasn't aware that street was, I thought that street was in it. Is there a reason that you might?
I thought it was Washington, I'm sorry.
I thought it was all three of them,
Washington,
between Jefferson and Lampkin.
It said Lafayette from Main to Lampkin. So I guess it should be like, I'll make an amendment to.
I'll be honest with you, I thought they were all included. I get the answer, through the answer, but I don't know about that. Not to my knowledge of any request or.
Chief, you don't see an issue. Do you see an issue with?
No, sir.
Thank you. Further citizen comment? Do we have any further citizen comment? Any further citizen comment? Any further citizen comment? Seeing none, we'll move to public appearance, and we have two public appearances tonight. The first is by the municipal court judge, and he's going to present the court report. You will have 10 minutes. I ask that you remain for any questions or comments the board may have when you finish your presentation.
Mayor and board, I'm planning to take 10 minutes. I saw this agenda. I said we could do it. I know how long it's going to take not to. Let me just start by saying what a privilege and an honor it is if you allow us to serve city prosecutor, head clerk, a court administrator, and our court staff. It's a privilege and an honor that you allow us to serve the citizens of the city of Starkville for all these years. This year, more, we come before you kind of with excitement, even more than usual, because of the fact that I've always come before you all these years and told you what a first-class organization we have, what a first-class court we have, and now you've provided us first-class courtroom and facility need, which is, as I told you in the past, our court is second to none. Now our court and our facility is second to none, and I've seen it respect. So for that, the morale of our staff is tremendous with this new facility. The second thing, not only that, you've gone as far as to now, you've given us electronic filing. So we kind of got, this is kind of like Christmas for us. We got everything we wanted. We couldn't be more happy this year to present this before you again. Thank you for everything that you've done at this point, because it's made a tremendous difference for us and going to in the future. And Mr. Perkins can tell you, electronic filing is the way of the future. We're already almost filled up with filing that you provide us. It's just you have to have it. And thank you all for doing that and listening to it.
Misdemeanors fell from 1423 to 1219. Felonies went from 225 to 190. Right here, this gives you a glimpse over the last 12 years. Obviously, we decreased a little over 1,000 cases from the previous year. If you compare it to the last 12, we're down slightly. So we're down about 1,100 cases compared to last year. And right here is where we give you more detailed analysis of our caseload. And you're going to see a bar chart of traffic citations, and on the left-hand side, you'll see some of our more common traffic categories. And at the bottom, you'll notice this pie chart, and that's going to show you the percentage of each one of these categories. Now, for example, a leading category is no proof of insurance, 1,829 citations. That's 23% of our traffic citation cases. Next is no seatbelt and no child restraint, 1,349, or 17% of traffic cases. Speeding, 1063, or 14%. That's followed by no or a suspended driver's license, 645. Running a red light or stop sign, 581. And we had, of course, 383 DUIs. If we take a look at misdemeanors, this is what Judge Fagan was talking about. The top category by far is violation of probation and contempt of court. We had 390 new cases. This is where we spend a significant amount of our time. At the price of 32% of our overall misdemeanors. Coming in next, drug-related misdemeanors, 208 cases, or 17%. Alcohol-related cases, 185, or 15%. And even though numbers fluctuate from year to year, these top three categories are consistently the top three categories. Misdemeanor theft, 134 cases. Disturbing thieves, disorderly conduct, 108. Simple assault or any other misdemeanor domestic violence charge, 83 new cases. Now, if we take a look at felonies here, it's important to understand these numbers represent felony cases where actual arrests have been made. They do not represent the number of reported felonies. The leading category, felony drugs, 53 new cases, 28% of our felony caseload. Aggravated assault, 47 new cases, which is about a quarter of our caseload. Theft, burglary, and robbery, 31 new cases. White collar crimes, with 20 new cases, and we had 6 felony DUI cases. So at this point, we would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Alderman.
I have about one question. How do fines for municipal court permit?
Sorry?
How do fines for municipal court permit?
Here at the court clerk's office.
What occurs when someone doesn't compete on the fine?
Well, Well, it depends on the scenario, each driver's license, or issue warrants, their arrest. Each individual are placed on probation, and monitored by probation companies. If they don't meet the sentence of the court, the probation officer will file a violation of our court. At that point, we get to send them back in court. If they show up, we find out why they haven't been paid, and find out why they have not been with their probation officer. If they don't show up, we usually show them.
And let me ask you this, what happens then when the fines are still not paid?
We look at each case one at a time.
So you look at this case one at a time. Okay. I met someone last year when I was at Illinois, and I met her again a couple of weeks ago when I was in Jackson for smoking. I understand that she came up and met with you and a couple of others. That is something that I'm definitely interested in our board, we bring it to the board to let us make a decision. Is at no cost to our city for someone to collect our fines? I spoke with her today. She has informed me that she works for Columbus, Regional, Gulfport, Oliver, Fernando, Holly Springs, Tulip. So that's something that I would like our city to take a look at. If you're concerned about some personnel, if they're not involved in the money like she has told me they would, I think that this board would be receptive to giving you some personnel to come in, taking some checks from someone that doesn't cost the city.
We're going to evaluate that further this very week.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Any further questions or comments from the members?
Young, city judge, we certainly appreciate you, your staff, and Mr. Rook, the prosecutor. She does a very esteemed job, great lawyer. Thank you, honorable court clerk and Judge Favor. As you mentioned, that electronic filing is very significant. I'm sure you're reporting one of the leading courts in the state of Mississippi, like all the courts you have practiced in, Chancery, Circuit, that's the order that they get everything electronic filing. So that demonstrates where you all are. It shows how busy you are the court session. So we want to thank you, Judge, the court administrator, the prosecutor, and the court clerk, and of course your excellent job is evidence from what I see that the crime is really down and controlled. It's all depends on how things are done. It's a very good place to live and learn the board because of all of your hard work. So thank you again to all of you for your excellent job.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. I have to give credit to the chief and the hard work of his police officer too, because without him, they're the ones that help us tremendously as well.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Further questions about Alderman Walker?
Yes, sir. Just Mr. Rudd, excellent presentation, as always. My teams are tracking down a good road again for last year. We hope that's going to be the same for this year. One question I have is code enforcement violations, are they coming to the court now? And if they are, is that under miscellaneous category, or how is that working?
I'll mention that. There are no violations. That's what I'm category. No, we've not adjudicated the code of complaints with us. The tolls are going to be set aside in special, we're going to have a special report day. As we told you last year, on Wednesdays, I was going to come in and we were going to try to do it at 1 o'clock before 12 o'clock. I think I was going to come in there at lunch and just, so, but when we do, then we will have a different category.
Thank you.
One thing I did want to say, well, just to expand, I know you didn't have any more questions, but when you see those numbers as far as the felonies and those arrests, that's not taking into account all the calls that they go. That's just the people who got arrested. Well, those are the people that just affidavit filings. That doesn't count the number of calls that the chief and his officer go on with complaints about domestic violence and those things that never follow through. So the numbers are good, they are, but that doesn't take away from what they're doing as well. Because is although the numbers may be down, doesn't mean they're not going a fewer number of calls, I can assure you. I'm sure the chief can back me up from that.
Our call volume is steadily going up every year.
And that's why I say what I say, because I don't want to mislead you and the reason I'm let y'all know that their calls are going down, because that's what the chief has expressed to me and, you know, all his officers said our calls are going. So I just want to say that, I don't want to mislead you. Thank you.
Any further questions, Scott? Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
The next public appearance is by Jeremiah Dumas on behalf of the Starkville MSU Area Rapid Transit Program. Mr. Dumas, you will have 10 minutes to make your presentation, and I would ask that you remain for any questions from Malcolm.
Well, good evening. Thank you all for having me. I do want to say that this is all of our relationship with you. The fact that our largest service area is with you, it was our hope this year to have our public hearing as a part of your official meeting, so we appreciate y'all having us to do so. This is our annual public hearing as part of our annual process and proposal process with NDOT. Hannah Howell from my office is here. She's in the back, and we do have a sign-up sheet. But I know some of y'all heard these, a lot of the information here, but since it is a public hearing, I do want to go through the process of just touching base on where we are, where we've been, and what are our goals for next year, and of course, as the mayor mentioned, open it up for our discussion. So just real quickly, Smart Transit itself on campus started in 1996. In 2006, we operated our first flag and ride system for the city. It was a partnership between the city of Starkville and MSU. That system lasted for about 18 months. In 2012, I was asked to chair a committee that really put together a new process and a new way of thinking that flag and ride system. And the proposal was submitted to NDOT, it was awarded. And as part of that, we were able, in August of 2013, to initiate the SMART program, what we know is the SMART program with our Sportsplex parking lot. In 2014, in January, we opened the Old Main Express and the Boardtown Loop. So the Old Main is the route that comes downtown. The Boardtown Loop is the one that goes from Emerson School all the way up to the hospital. And then January of last year, I came before you about this time last year and talked about the changes that we were going to have in July of last year. And those were really, by and large, expansions in the city routes because of the demand and some of the route times that we were experiencing. So we created Highway 12. We split the Boardtown, and then we lengthened the Old Main Express to go to Avenue Patriots. And then recently, most recently, January 2016, we created the GTR Express route as service from the city of Starkville to the Golden Triangle Regional Airport. And happy to say that in our first month of operation, we had over 400 riders. So very pleased with the growth as that system is going. Just to touch on the high points of what the proposal is and what the grant details are, is we do make the application to the Mississippi Department of Transportation. They annually receive a lump sum of federal transit authority monies, and our system is funded as part of that process. As part of that proposal and as part of that grant package, we're required to do a couple of things. Number one is we are required to operate a fixed route system. That's why our routes are the way they are. We have stops the way they are, and we have fixed routes, and we do not need gauge. Those requirements as part of that. Fair transit is another process. So within a mile and a half of our service area, we have to provide door-to-door service for anyone who qualifies from a handicap perspective. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. We are required to offer voter ID registration. Transportation, we have to participate in statewide and regional coordination. So we're there statewide, our regional transit group that we're a part of, that help facilitate transit across the state if that were the case. This is funded on an 80-20 capital match. So shuttles and shelters, et cetera, are funded at 80% by NDOT. The annual operating cost of the system is a 50-50 cost share. Quickly, the goals, number one is, if you've been on Blackjack Road or Highway 12, you know that we are experiencing some significant traffic problems on campus. So there is a primary goal of this being a multimodal target, if you will, our goal of reaching enhanced multimodal so that we can decrease traffic issues on campus. Provide transit connectivity in the city of Starkville. When you look at the fact that we're at 37% poverty rate and low and moderate income is a target area as part of 5311 funding, we look at several different factions: housing, retail, civic, healthcare, access to jobs. All of those are things that we are required to do as part of this funding and design our route. NDOT has just recently completed their multi-plan, which is their statewide transportation plan. Mass transit is a big part of that. The northeast corner of Mississippi and central Mississippi is a huge part of the state that is large part void of transit options. So we're part of that. I'll quickly go through this. You've seen this, but just to talk about how we selected the sites based on where they are. Government services. We looked at the road networks and sidewalk networks. Every one of our stops are supposed to be on an ADA accessible route. Our shuttles are ADA accessible, so when we let someone off our bus, they are supposed to have access to and from where their destination is. Design the routes as such, and then ultimately we implemented this year the 2015 changes. As you see, the 9 routes that we have. This one doesn't have to mention 10, but that includes the GTR airport. At any given time, we have 20 shuttles on the route. We have 8 hubs. So Bowels and Walmart and Kroger are all hub stops. You might see 2, 3 shuttles at a time at that location at any given time. And that's specific because that's perhaps the Fordtown North and Fordtown South linking with the Highway 12 route. And we do that so that the layover time for those individuals wanting to change from one route to the other is minimal. We have 48 total stops. These are the details on the GTR Express route. One shuttle leaves Walmart an hour and 45 minutes before the flight time, the scheduled flight time. It leaves the mill at an hour and 25 minutes. Then it gets you to the airport at 1 hour prior to flight time. Then on the way back, we leave 30 minutes post arrival. We get you back to the mill at 55 minutes, and then we get you back to Walmart at an hour and 15 minutes. So like the rest of our system, that is a free service. Just a little bit about what else we have. We do have a charter service, 40 vehicles. We have over 70 full and part-time drivers. In the event of from the standpoint of the broader system, all our buses are GPS tracked. We have active passenger cameras, video systems. We're very pleased that in July of last year, we had our 1 millionth rider. And when I say 1 millionth, that goes back to January of 2014. That's when we kind of set our cornerstone as our initial start date. I mentioned paratransit. We started with 0 paratransit reservations. Now we have over 100 a month. So we're, as you can imagine, you do the math on that, that's 3, 4 averaging a day. And those are door-to-door services. So we go pick someone up and maybe accessible van and take them to any of their healthcare needs. City ridership is drastically improving. 100% of cash match is provided by industry partner services. The city of Starkville, so you help us in providing any kind of services for our signage installation and our shelter concrete pad installation. So I'll talk about some of that in a little bit. I mentioned the 1 millionth rider in July of last year. That adds up the fall, and in January of this year, we're now at 1.42 million riders. We've had a total of 3,700 rider days. So across the whole system, every bus operation over the 10 routes. Those are the active days we've been riding. In terms of the city itself, we've had 290,000 riders on those routes that are city-specific. 20% of that total ridership, or 20% of that, that is 20% of our total ridership. Well, what's good is when you look at the last couple of months, that average is actually increasing. So we're now averaging about 27% of our ridership is coming from the city. And I'll give you an indication of that was that over Christmas, we operated for the first time between Christmas and New Year's. You could argue that's the time that the students are here. And just in 1 week, we had 1,900 riders on just the 3 city routes. So that's a pretty good indication of what's there. So what are our goals for this year? Well, we want to stay the course. We're not going to expand. Our goal this year is to pull part-time employees off the city routes and put full-time employees, because in working with people with groups of disabilities, in particular, we're working with individuals with the National Center for Low Vision. We need identifiable people on those routes throughout the day. Okay. So that's one goal. The other goal is that some of the routes in the city, you may have seen that we've taken some of the larger buses off, in particular the Fordtown South. We put a 25-passenger bus on that route instead of a 35-passenger. We're still operating some buses on campus that are from 1996. So we're going to transition and purchase smaller buses, the 25 passenger buses, put those on all the city routes and pull those large buses on and put them on the campus routes where we're averaging about 400,000 riders. We are building a bus wash facility in our area on Butler Lane. And then in terms of the city, we're wanting to continue our paving plan with shelters, benches, and waste management signage. Some of you probably have seen, we have signage in most locations, but unfortunately we've not gotten to the point of having benches and shelters and waste management the way we'd like to in all our locations. So what's this mean for you? We would like to continue our in-kind services of shelter pad installation, specifically our stops at Santa Anita, Garrett Road, Long Street, North Montgomery, and that list goes on. We've got about 10 or 15 different locations over the next couple of years. And then specifically the Safe Routes to School project on Louisville Street. We were a part of that initial conversation. The MDOT removed actually the parts of the project that were specific to the pull-offs and the shelter pads along Louisville Street between Lynn Lane and Emerson School. We currently stop at Emerson, but we would like to stop at those housing facilities along Louisville Street. So we'd like to partner with you in helping us create some shelter pads in that location so that we actually pull off the old Highway 25 off of Louisville Street because of the speed and the design of that road and make it more safe and viable. So that's my presentation. I would like to open it up for questions for you, and of course, if we could, I would like to ask some questions from the audience if there are.
Well, let's hear a public comment first. At this time, is there any public comment on the presentation? If you will, please approach the podium if you will.
My name is Alvin Turner. I am a router of the 4 days a week. And we have one problem with the police officers. We have some mental patients tasing them that don't work. It's because when they go to the state hospital, they have a shot in back in the back. So tasers don't work. Most times, the young patients, they not taking medication, but they do recognize me by I go to the mental health as well. I hear when we especially if you run across people that have schizophrenia in bipolar. And what I'll tell you that it make nice work. But the time around time of job, we try to get each other know who it was. But we appreciate it. The citizens that the best thing that could happen, and we would like to put it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any further comments on the presentation? Any further comments? Any further comments? Any further comments? Seeing none, are there any questions from the members of the board for Alderman business?
What I was just a comment. I think what we can continue to see is year to year as the smart system has been in place, that improvement keep happening. More ridership both on campus and off campus, more stops that make the system easier to use. And I think this is, as you continue to go forward, I hope you keep pushing and you're trying to meet these goals, because I think this is absolutely a great step for our community. The system overnight and everything worked out perfectly, as you are well aware, but I think people are catching on. And if you haven't ridden the Starkville, I encourage you to do it. It can certainly get you around town in a very efficient way. And I believe more and more citizens are going to be taking advantage of the services that we offer. So thank you very much for continuing to push forward with this program. It's clearly an asset for our city and the future economic development of our city. So thank you.
Further questions or comments? All we're doing is when people are riding the bus to the GCR airport, they can park under covered parking at the middle, finish the bus right there. I get a lot of questions about that, not a lot of people realize that that's an option now. In fact, that you can park your car here in Starkville, catch the bus, it'll take you right to the airport, get home and bring you right back to your car. The car is safe and secure in the parking garage covered. So, great feature. Appreciate it. Very much. Further questions or comments from the room? Any further questions or comments? Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you all for doing it. Thank you.
The next matter on the agenda is the consideration of accepting the Starkville, Mississippi State University Area Rapid Transit Report recommendations and authorizing the mayor to sign the notification of intent to apply for federal assistance as presented by Jeremiah Dewitt, Director of Parking, Transit, and Sustainability. Discussion.
So
Motion has been made by Alderman Walker to accept the Starkville, Mississippi State University Area Rapid Transit Report recommendations and authorize the mayor to sign the notification of intent to apply for federal assistance as presented by Jeremiah Dewitt, Director of Parking, Transit, and Sustainability. Alderman Walker made the motion.
yes.
Do I hear a second? Motion has been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Walker, you wish to speak on the matter?
No.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Saying none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion carries. The next matter you have before you is the discussion and consideration of professional services agreement with Retail Strategies LLC to provide consulting and related services to the city of Starkville, OCEDA, and the DCC. And that brings me to a note. You have a change in the contract. One of the signatories was erroneously listed originally as the Greater Starkville Development Partnership. The Visitors and Convention Council is under the umbrella of the Greater Starkville Development Partnership. But it is a different organization with a different board, and they will actually be the signatories on portion of that contract, so we have the updated contract. You have them? All right, and Retail Strategy has a presentation that won't make, and prior to that, I'm going to offer a few introductory comments. Retail Strategies is a group that works aggressively to recruit predominantly large-scale retail in communities across the United States. They have over 100 clients. We have made in this term our efforts to recruit large-scale retail community a priority. I am impressed with the profile of this firm. I think they can help us achieve some success in that realm, and I'm excited about the possibilities. The contract is a $37,500 per year annual contract. It would be split three ways. The city portion would be $17,500 per year, and the Aldermen County Economic Development Authority and the Visitors and Convention Council would each take a $10,000 share of the contract for the total amount. The $17,500 responsibility of the city would be paid by a $28,000 reimbursement we received for professional services that we performed on the animation part last year. So this is something we can afford to pay for, and I do think we can benefit from the service and giving attention to
information, put them together, and we move to step 2 and create a strategic plan. That strategic plan will then be presented to you, or we have cataloged all the different properties in the community, and we'll take that information and match it up to certain retailers based on our knowledge of what they're looking for as they look to expand throughout the country. And then we'll take that information and start our actual recruitment process. Part of the recruitment process is developing marketing materials and then representing you at regional shows, ICSC shows around the country, so that we can work on behalf of you as an extension of your economic development that you're doing in your community. Excuse me. So going back to the market analysis, we take a variety of different approaches at looking at that analysis. There are retailers look at psychographic analysis of communities such as college towns or farm towns, farming towns. There are 67 different tapestries that they look at. We will categorize your town based on one of those particular tapestries, if you will. That's something that they're interested in looking at. It helps us as we communicate to them things from wages and occupation, consumer expenditure behaviors, the age of the population here, the density of the trade area, and so on. And then we'll take a gap analysis. We'll actually look at the retail analysis from different categories of retail and what kind of dollars are actually leaking out of your community into other communities. So our goal would be to identify where there's opportunity and then match that with the survey that I mentioned earlier, the desired retailers that you want. We'll then try to match those along with the actual pieces of property that we've identified that can be utilized as new and vibrant retail and restaurants. We'll take that down and look at the actual number that's necessary. When we do a peer analysis, one of your peer communities may have 3 more, or on average, your peer communities may have 3 more clothing stores than Starkville, as an example. So that would give us an idea that we need to go recruit clothing stores. I'm not saying that's the fact here for Starkville, but that's just an example of what we would do. And then those 3 clothing stores would translate into a need for 30,000 square feet of leasable space. So we would either approach developers, our relationships from around the country, or local developers to then build those particular strip centers so that we can recruit the retailers to that. I've mentioned the peer analysis. The peer analysis basically starts with looking at population. We kind of get communities that are very similar to your population, and we drill that down, and then use median home income to drill that down. So we have identical communities that we're looking at, or very similar communities, so that when we look at the retailers that are in those communities, it helps us make that presentation to retailers around the country. If they're in city XYZ and having success there, that's why they should be in Starkville, Mississippi. From there, you can see that, as this is one example of El Reno, where the daytime population compared to peers is the same. The household income is very similar, but there's a gap here in the gross leasable area or space. So what we would need to do in that particular community is talk to developers about building and finding some land for them to build on. One interesting new piece of data that we're using to sell your community to retailers has to do with mobile data collection. We all use smartphones these days, and on those smartphones we have apps. And those apps, we offer, if we set our phone correctly, retailers have the opportunity to see where those phones are coming from. So that's what's important about that, is this is a college town. And as we look at this data, it will show actually the retailer where consumers are coming from. So it gives us a perspective, instead of just looking at the rooftops in Starkville, Mississippi, it gives the retailer perspective and says there's a whole lot bigger market here with the college students than just the rooftops. Traditionally, they've looked at rooftops, but it gives us the opportunity to show them that there's a better opportunity to locate here and be successful with the new expansion. From a real estate analysis, we're going to come in, and we've got over 150 years of experience of commercial real estate on our team. We have 28 employees on our team. that have been doing commercial real estate, and we've done transactions in 44 states plus Puerto Rico. We're going to come into your community and do a boots on the ground analysis and use our professional experience to really identify what are those pieces of property. And we're going to drill that down to focus properties. Excuse me, I'm having trouble with this. We're going to drill that down to focus properties. You see blue dots on this particular map, and this is just an example of Provo, Utah, that we use as a guide as we're creating our strategic plan to go after retailers. From there, our goal obviously is to be a long-time partner with the city of Starkville. The contract is an initial 3 years, but we want to be here 10 years from now. The commercial real estate market and retail is the fastest changing market as far as commercial real estate. There are mergers and acquisitions that occur between Walgreens and Rite Aid, or Walmart closing one store and opening up a bigger one somewhere else. And that creates opportunity within the community to bring other new retailers into the community. So we want, as this thing changes dynamically, we want to be there alongside you, partnering with you, recruiting those retailers and keeping this community, keeping the top line retailers here, as well as filling in other spaces where certain retailers may have left and moved to another area of town. So part of that development strategy, we'll look at long-term redevelopment zones. Well, I'm having trouble with this thing here. Long-term redevelopment zones, big box areas, as well as a high-end boutique type area leasing strategy. From there, once we have the plan developed, we've done all the analysis, we've looked at all the real estate that's available, we've done a survey with your community to understand what you're looking for, we've created that strategic plan, now the real work begins, and that's when we go to work proactively contacting retailers and representing the city of Starkville to try to recruit new and vibrant retail and restaurants to your community. Part of that execution is that we're going to represent you at national conferences throughout the country. We go to Retail Live in Orlando. We go to 10 different ICSC shows around the country. We're going to overcome the objections that the retailers give to us about why they haven't expanded to your community before. A lot of times, retailers that may not have come here because they just simply haven't had a piece of property put in front of them. So that's part of being proactive and connecting with them on a daily basis. We're going to come into your community. We're going to talk to the landowners, the developers, the brokers that are here in this community and understand what your needs are, what their wants are with their property. And then we're going to work on their behalf to go fill those spaces with new retail. From that point, we're also going to leverage our relationships. As I mentioned, we're working with 130 different communities around the country. We're working with development firms from California to Chicago, Chattanooga, Nashville, Birmingham, and other places. Those folks are not bound necessarily by distribution, and they may want to come develop in your community. So we utilize those relationships to introduce your community as an opportunity to bring new retail. We're going to communicate with you on a regular basis through a software we call Basecamp. We're going to communicate with the local real estate professionals and understand what is the city of Starkville wants and help you achieve that as an extension of your economic development office. And we're going to do this proactively. We're going to initiate these conversations. I sit in a room every day with a group of retail recruiters, and all they're doing is picking up the phone, calling developers, calling retailers. These retailers have people in their offices that are responsible as VPs of real estate or real estate managers that are responsible for expanding their stores around the country. Matter of fact, we have 2 of them that work for us now. We were able to help them so much in their previous jobs, and they saw what we were doing. We were doing 70 to 80% of their work for them, where all they had to do was come present this particular site to their real estate council in order to get approval to make expansions. So we have 2 of these folks working for us now. So it's exciting that we're out there every day. I get to hear them have these conversations talking about pieces of property and making things happen. I mentioned we represent your community. We'll represent them at ICSC shows around the country. Ideally, the ones that are more the ones that are more regional here in Atlanta, the Gulf South meeting, maybe Dallas, Chicago, these are going to be key opportunities for us to contact with developers as well as retailers that are looking at this particular area and show them specific sites that we've identified for them. And we'll represent you at all the national shows. The big one coming up this spring in May is out in Las Vegas. There'll be over 50,000 people at this show, from retailers to developers to, in a convention hall that's a mile long. When we go to these meetings, we'll have over 150 meetings set up with our staff and developers and retailers from around the country to represent the communities that we represent. As a part of our retail process, we're going to create a brochure representing your city that provides those retailers all the key information that, as we've worked with them over the course of the last 5 years, we've come to understand exactly what they're looking for in a concise form. Because when we go in there and we have an opportunity to talk to them, we've got to make it, we've got to capture their attention. And so we've got all this information down to where we know what they're looking for, from gross leasable area to the fact that they want to be a co-tenancy with a Hobby Lobby, or they want 5 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet of retail space. Whatever their criteria is, we know that criteria, we understand that criteria, and we want to put that in front of them, from population demographics to consumer expenditures and those kind of things. As I mentioned, we're going to put a team of individuals around your community. When and if we are hired by you to partner with you, we're going to have a portfolio manager who's going to be our key point of contact for you. That will work. That person's responsibility will be to contact all the property owners, developers, brokers, and really communicate and maintain that level of communication between us and your point of contact. Under that person or along beside them, we'll have a team of recruiters. I mentioned here we've got a director of retail recruitment and then also an associate, just as an example. And they're going to communicate, as I mentioned, through a software called Basecamp. And every conversation that we have, it will be logged. Every email that we send out, whether we're meeting with them at an ICSC show, a retail live show, having a phone conversation, an email conversation, all that's going to be logged in Basecamp. Your point of contact here in the city will be able to see that information, see the good, bad, the ugly about those conversations, why somebody's interested in a piece of property, why they may not be interested in a piece of property. That gives us an opportunity to maybe improve or work on a piece of property so that we can recruit that retailer in the future, or a different one. Beyond just the core team of individuals, our executive team, one of the things we hold proud at Retail Strategies is that we work in an accountable environment. Our executives that have been in this community, or been in this business for a long time, will be the ones that will come out to your community and they'll bog your community, do that boots on the ground analysis. We'll have our client management team and our retail recruiters, our researchers, our marketing people. They're all communicating and developing that retail strategy. And as we talk to retailers on behalf of your community as well as other communities around the country, we're sharing information with them so that we can make sure we put the right piece of property in front of those retailers. With that, we always get asked about our deliverables and our execution. It kind of wraps up into the fact that we're going to do research in real estate analysis. We're going to create a strategy and a marketing plan, and then we're going to go out there and actually execute and represent you throughout the country at these shows with retailers. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you may have.
Questions or comments from the members of the board? Alderman Webb.
Mr. Holbert, thank you so much. If you keep coming to Starkville, we're going to find your house. I noticed that you still have Lacey there. I met Lacey about 2 years ago. And then she presented for my class called Retail Recruitment at MML during the summertime. I want to say thank you so much for your presentation, and I hope that the board will embrace this tonight.
Thank you very much.
And I don't have any questions because I met with you, maybe about a month or a little bit more than that.
2 months ago.
Thank you so much.
Lacey is a key member of our team. She was with the shopping center group. She developed the municipality division there with the shopping center group before she came to join us. She's very well respected in the ICSCs around the country. She's a featured presenter in a lot of their shows as well as like MML.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Further questions or comments from the members of the board? Alderman Carver.
I've got questions. It's not, thank you for that. And this is not for this gentleman specifically. More, apparently there's been some meetings, but I guess my question was, you know, a lot of times when we discuss in healthcare insurance provider discussion, we wanted a local presence. And since this came out of some of your competition, has been emailing and calling us, and apparently there were some meetings before, and I think you met some people through the conferences and things like this. It's my first time to see you or meet you. But is this something that needs to be bid out to other, you know, from a transparency side, or is this something if we vote on tonight, this is the only person that's had an opportunity to provide this kind of service to us?
It's a professional service, so legally it doesn't have to be. Now, you certainly always can issue a request for proposals, but that's not a legally binding document.
Second, just sitting there thinking, how does this affect our relationship with Lincoln? Have there been any discussions with the Lincoln? And I know that they use this type of service in Columbus as well, but this is just what I've read in the paper. But does this affect us and them whatsoever going forward, or is this something they promote? Or
Yeah, I sat down with the Link team last week in anticipation of this meeting, and I can tell you where it will affect our relationship with the Link is they have said repeatedly, and they reiterated it at the meeting last week, that either they're doing retail alone or they're not doing retail for us. So if we enter this contract, the Link will no longer work retail for us. Now, they will certainly continue to work industrial recruitment for us, and in fact, I think it will allow them to focus more of their time and energy on the industrial recruitment piece.
how much do we pay the Link a year? Is it $50,000?
$50,000 plus an additional up to $25,000 in professional services.
Of the original $50,000 that we pay, how much is that was included in the first discussions that was retail centered or retail based?
Retail, to my recollection, when we were forming the contract, was never a big part of the discussion. Now, when we and Columbus started looking at retail consultants a couple of years ago, it led to a discussion where we were defining rules and boundaries for retail recruitment. And it was during that discussion that I first recall the Link making it clear that they wanted to be the sole retail contact or not involved in retail at all.
Yeah, I remember that. So basically, if we'll keep the Link contract at the 50 plus the 25 plus this 17.5, correct? I mean, we would not take anything away from the Link contract.
That's right.
Financially. So this would just be an add-on after I know we've got the 28.5 back, and then next year we'd owe 11. We would have 11 more in the bank.
We'll end up paying $17,500 each year. Now, in that second year, you have the payment split up into two payments, one of $12,000 and one of $12,500 and one of $5,000. But it's still $17,500 to be paid in the same fiscal year. And actually, I'm mistaken. The last year, it drops to $15,000.
Is there any this is a question for you maybe, is there any, this is just from our side, we've invested in the Link. And that was a partnership which we decided to pursue years ago. Obviously, I think other than the Academy, I don't see too much more success they've had on the retail side for us. I'm gonna say that honestly. So if we invest in you, is there any kind of return on investment? Is there any kind of guarantee you can give us, or is there any kind of track record that you can say, you spend this with us, as a company, that any kind of projection that you can make it feel better for us?
Well, we would love to give you that guarantee, but we can't give you a guarantee. But what we do have is a good track record. Over a 3-year period, we have a 92% success rate as far as cities renewing our contract. We have a variety of success stories on our website that you're more than welcome to go access at www.retailstrategies.com. From a perspective of targeting specific cities, we've had Starkville on our eye for a long time, and this is something we're real excited about. This is a community we do believe we can be successful in, so we're going to go out and given your approval, we're going to go out and give our best effort to make that happen for you.
And I guess my last question would be, somebody on the board that's had these discussions, do y'all feel that the Link is inadequate in what it's doing for the contract price, or do you feel that this company or a company like this is better suited, or is the link lacking a staff that can handle it, or some, you know, what would be, you know, normally we don't have a discussion in front of you, but I mean, what would be, are they able to do something that the link isn't able to do?
Maynard first, then Wynn. Alderman Maynard.
Alderman Carver, my position on this is I would like the link to focus 100% of their time and effort on industrial recruitment, because we know that's what they do best. That's what they were originally formed to do, and based on their track record, they do an excellent job with industrial recruitment. Now, I look at a company like Retail Strategies, I see them as the link on retail. That's what they do best. Their sole purpose is recruiting retail, and we need both in this community. And I don't think that the link can split and do both. I think they need to focus on industrial, and I would like to see a company like this focus on retail for us. So that's my position on it.
All right, I have Wynn, then Little.
Thank you so much. On March 3rd, this was 2014, the mayor and myself and another alderman met with Mr. Joe McHiggins of the link. At that time, and I'm going to tell it now, he conveyed in the meeting before the mayor, myself, and another alderman that he had been told from day one not to do retail recruiting for our city. I read you all that letter, and that was on March the 4th when I read it. I'll be more than happy to read it now. Mayor, myself, you, and another alderman. And I attended that meeting at the request of the mayor. Did not want to go along. I requested that a particular alderman sent to the east of me attend with me. And we all heard those words. Not that it has anything to do with you. If someone offers a motion for Retail Strategies tonight, and I'm certain that it will be offered, I have a friendly amendment that I'll be asking, and it will speak to my perspective on the link. Okay?
Little.
I'd just like to get a little lead in on how we got from A to B. We met these guys last year, Alderman Maynard and myself, last fall at the National League of Cities in Nashville, Matt and Brooke, and by happen chance, I stumbled into your booth there and for a little break trying to organize some stuff, and struck up a conversation with you guys and was very impressed from the get-go. And I went and found Maynard and said, you got to come back and meet these guys. And later on, we saw the mayor, and he said, this is the same group that I think in spring of 13 that you guys had been discussing possibly partnering with. And that's kind of how it all transpired. It wasn't, we've got a riff with the link, let's take that cog out of the wheel from them. It was nothing like that. This has all been kind of going on behind the scenes, and in the mindset that, well, we've already, through our budget cycle, how can we fund it? Fortunately, we were able to secure some additional funding through OCEDA and the Convention Visitors Bureau and the partnership, and that got us to where we're at, and had manna from heaven with the money coming back in recently from the overpayment on some due diligence that was done and paid last fall. So that being said, it's kind of how we got here. And someone, I think Alderman Carver mentioned earlier, there's been some other people calling. Well, yeah, their phone's been blowing up with emails the last couple of days because of Google, Google Alert. You know, these folks are keyed in and it alerts them, oh, somebody's doing some recruitment in Starkville. Bam, so they want to start calling them a piece of the pie. Well, where you been, you know? We're here, and the conversation Alderman Maynard and I had was just what he said a moment ago. This is perfect timing. Let the link focus on their niche, which is industrial recruitment. Let these guys come in and do the retail. And from what I understand, the link, as far as their retail involvement, was if they contacted the partnership, you know, say J.C. Penney contacts them, they would introduce them to the link, and they would take it and kind of facilitate recruitment from that point. They're not out actually doing what Retail Strategy does, is shaking the bushes, so to speak, and trying to drum up and recruit retail businesses to Starkville based on what's available, land, building space, and so forth. So that's the big distinguishing difference I see in the link, and not trying to down the link at all. They've been very successful, and they've got a proven track record of success in industrial park development, and I think given the right tools, they can be successful here too. And with that, I've got a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor. We'll hear the motion. Then actually I've got Wynn next, then I'll recognize you after her.
I move approval of the professional services agreement with Retail Strategies LLC as presented.
Motion has been made by Alderman Little to approve of an agreement with Retail Strategies LLC as presented at the table. Alderman Little, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Mr. Mayor.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Maynard. Alderman Little, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
All right, now I have Alderman Wynn, Alderman Perkins, after Alderman Wynn. Alderman Wynn.
Alderman Little, I have a friendly amendment that I would like to see added. And that the assignment and assumption of economic development service purchase agreement between Oktibbeha County and the city of Starkville be amended to exclude retail services from the economic development services provided by the link to the city.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have a problem with that being added. I would like to say that in our meeting with...
Hold on 1 second. Without objection, is there any objection to that being added to the motion? Seeing none, it's been reduced to writing. I'll pass it to the clerk.
In our meeting with the link, Executive Council and Joe Max and Mr. Deason, they had no problem whatsoever with relinquishing that aspect of retail service. So I do not have a problem with that being added, and I don't see anyone else would have a problem with that.
Alderman Wynn.
Okay, let me say this and I will end mine. Mr. Sanders, will you please stand up? And I'm hoping that anyone can read between the lines when I say this. I want to thank you, and I've said it before, thank you for all of the work that you did as it relates to Academy Sports for the city of Starkville. Did you hear what I just said?
Yes, ma'am.
Again, I want to thank you for all of the work that you've done as it relates to Academy Sports. When they reached out to you, you never dropped the ball. If anyone is in need of any information on that, they're welcome to file a Freedom of Information request. And all of the details will be provided to them, provided that they go through the proper procedures to file that. Mr. Mayor, I yield the floor.
Vice Mayor.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One question, then I'll ask a question to the presenter. Mr. Attorney, I noticed that this contract is extended to February 15, 2019. What advice, if any, do you have to the board as to whether or not we can extend a bind a subsequent board on this contract?
The subsequent board would not be binded. The binding successor doctrine kicks in where the subsequent board would have a chance to revisit this contract when they take office, the 6 months of their seating.
So basically, this is only binding until midnight the first Monday in July 2017.
At the subsequent board's pleasure, correct.
Right. Gentlemen, I've heard the discussion on this this retail strategist agreement, and if the board passes this, I'm very trusting and hopeful that you all will come to this city where this just won't be an agreement, just paperwork and documentation. So if this board passes this, I want y'all to convince me and the rest of the city that you're going to come here and be very interested in the city of Starkville to help actually locate retail development. I'm not impressed with the link. It is my personal opinion that they have not done a good job. And hopefully when the time comes that we can terminate the contract with them. I didn't support them in the beginning. Now, it's my further opinion that we do need retail development. I do not normally vote for this type of proposal, but I'm going to put my trust into you tonight. And I hopefully when midnight, the first Monday in July of next year, that I will have seen, along with the mayor and others, and this is a very serious matter, because we don't have money to throw out and throw around at these projects. We are a growing city. We have a lot of governmental needs here. We have a lot of infrastructure needs. And there are things that we are trying to get done, and we're trying to find where to get the money from. So with that being said, I'm going to put my trust in you tonight. I have not met you before, and I'm going to vote for this because we do need some retail development in this city. And because right now I'm not aware of anybody else who's actively trying to bring retail development. And really, if your firm is very successful with this retail development and can maybe help us with industrial development, I'd be in favor of voting for you to have the whole landscape of development. when that time comes, because when this matter first came up with this other development, I didn't vote for them, and I'm glad I didn't. So I'm gonna support this motion tonight, and I'm gonna ask you one favor. If you stay in touch with City Hall and let us know what's going on, you're gonna be getting the green stamp from us. And so when we give green stamps and write checks, we want services in return for our taxpayers.
Yes, sir.
And that's the way we do business in this city. So I'm gonna put my trust in company. I'm gonna vote for it this night. So hopefully, when you come back and you give us a report, we wanna hear from you, not just through phone calls from Las Vegas and Colorado and Utah. I mean, we wanna actually see you here in Starkville, Mississippi. I mean, we are a leading city in this state. We have the top university in the state. In case you don't know about Mississippi State University, are you from here? From Mississippi?
I live in Birmingham, Alabama.
Okay, well, you should know something about Mississippi State. We have one. Yes, sir. We have one, the leading university. So the leading university lies here in Starkville, not 100 miles from here. Okay, so we appreciate you, Mr. Mayor. I'm through. Yes, sir.
Further discussion. I've got Carver, then Walker.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
I do remember approving the link contract, and I do remember it having the word retail in there, so with that, I'm probably gonna vote against this tonight. You may already have the votes for that, and with that, I guess my question is to the city attorney, if that's who we originally tasked with that, and we're now, if this passes tonight, taking a significant portion of their workload away, do you think we should renegotiate that contract for a lesser price instead of doing less work with the link?
I can't speak to the renegotiation because that's a policy decision that you guys would make, but that's what Alderman Nguyen tagged the motion with, that there will be a renegotiation of the terms of the contract to make it clear that the link would no longer do retail and that retail strategies.
But that's what I asked was from a financial side, should we, reduce, if you take somebody's workload normally in the workplace, then you reduce their pay, but, you think it should have some financial aspect to that renegotiation of it?
Again, Alderman Carver, that would be a business decision for the board.
Thank you.
Alderman Walker.
Thank you for the presentation. The question I have is, it looked like your group is looking at a three-pronged strategy. How long does it take to get through, till you actually get to the recruitment stage, from the boots on the ground? What kind of time frame are we looking at if this were to be voted and passed?
Very good, and I do appreciate your question. And so we'll speak a little bit to Alderman Perkins' request, is that when we go through that process, when we get to that strategy and get it complete, we will come back to the city of Starkville and have a meeting with you and kind of go through that process. The first thing we're going to do is do that survey. We'll do introductions with you and handing you off to your core team. First thing they do is that survey. The second thing that they will do is, once that strategy is done, typically that's about 90 to 120 days into the process. And from there, we'll have a meeting with you and we'll agree on, here's the strategy, here are the retailers we're going to go after. And then we'll go from there and take advantage of the conferences and conventions that are out there. And then we'll be communicating through that base camp. We ask in the contract, there's a point of contact representing your side of the contract, and we will be communicating back and forth with that person.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Alderman Little's motion to approve the contract, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. By a vote of 6 in favor with 1 against, this motion passes. Thank you. The next matter before you is the discussion and consideration of a professional services agreement with Cornerstone Governmental Affairs, LLC. And I'll start by noting that this contract has also been changed from the original version. This was originally a contract that included the City of Starkville, Oktibbeha County, and Cornerstone Governmental Affairs. As you may have read in the newspaper this morning, Oktibbeha County did not approve the contract yesterday evening. So what was originally a $60,000 contract that would have included governmental consulting services in Jackson, Washington, D.C. for the City of Starkville and Oktibbeha County is now a $30,000 contract that would include the same services just for the City of Starkville. So essentially it leaves what is being offered to us unchanged. It's just no longer a three-party contract.
Now, let me offer an explanation as to why I'm bringing this to you. And it is simply that I think we could certainly use more capability in outreach to particularly the state and federal legislative processes, but also to state and federal agencies as well. It is not uncommon at all for cities to have a full-time staff member that works nothing but state and federal programs. We do not have such a staff member. I'm not asking for that. Frankly, it's my hope that this contract arrangement could be both cheaper and better. It is very time sensitive. I honestly believe this is probably about the last opportunity we have before the appropriations process in this legislative session really gets going to bring in a governmental affairs consultant. I think it would be extremely helpful for us. I have 2 projects that I'm going to seek state funding for this year, whether we have a governmental affairs consultant or not. I just think we will be much more effective in that request if we have a governmental affairs consultant. The highest priority that I'll make a request on is you're going to see a presentation later tonight. We have a gap in funding on our police renovation project. That will be the first priority that I take to our legislative delegation and try to get funding in the bond bill for this year. I'm also going to take a request for funding for environmental remediation at the what property we refer to commonly as the Osita landfill. It's actually an old Mississippi State University landfill, which is the area for expansion of the research park. We've got about $2 million in environmental remediation work that has to be done before those additional lots for expansion of the research park can be opened. That would be a request I would make as well. Now, this contract is not just for legislative advocacy in the Mississippi legislature. It would also include, on an ongoing basis, potential contact with state agencies and contact with both the federal legislative process and federal agencies. We've had some success in the past working both the federal legislative process and the agency process. Sometimes the congressional staffs and the agencies work together on steering funding for projects. A good example of funding that's been steered for a project is the Banyan Road Sewer Project. There's a sizable Appalachian Regional Commission grant that goes into that project. Actually, Alderman Wynn, our former CAO, and several others made a trip to Senator Cochran's office a little more than a year ago, and that's where the conversation began that resulted in that funding from ARC. Of course, last year we did get an appropriation through the legislative process. That's the $750,000 appropriation for the connectivity study on Highway 12. So we have seen some success in these programs. The reason I'm bringing this to you is I think our success is going to be limited until we get some additional expertise and support working the legislative and agency processes. The means I'm proposing to pay for this contract are predominantly coming from 2 discretionary lines that you've put in my budget. The $10,000 of it would come from the same $28,000 reimbursement that we just discussed related to the retail strategies contract. And then you've given me a professional services line and a miscellaneous line. I propose pulling $10,000 from each of those lines to pay for the contract. And again, I wouldn't bring this to you if I did not think it would greatly increase our opportunities for success in bringing additional state and federal funding to the city. Discussion. Alderman Little.
How did you arrive at Cornerstone? Anybody else out there?
Actually, they came and made a pitch. And the thing that was most appealing about them, I have talked with one other lobbyist who is a very good lobbyist who indirectly did some work for us last year for another outside organization. That person is a state-only lobbyist, and the thing that was appealing about Cornerstone Governmental Affairs is they have a Washington DC office and a Jackson office, so it provided the opportunity not only to get legislative and agency action in Mississippi, but also to build a more robust federal advocacy program as well.
I've called a couple of contacts of mine and inquired about them, and I've heard nothing but positive things, I can say that. And one of my questions was, I called another lobbyist down at the Capitol today and asked him, I said, hey, aren't we a little bit late to be considering something like this? And he said, if it was this time last year, this time next year, he'd say yes, but he said no, because it's a new term, beginning of a new term, nothing really got done in January, so they're really just getting cranked up and about to start hitting committee deadlines on bills coming up. So there is still the window open for us to go forward this year. And my thinking would be that this is just a little bit of money. It's a lot of money, but it's a little bit in the big scheme of things compared to what they yielded for like City of Ridgeland. I think last year they got what, $1.5 million or so.
They do represent the City of Ridgeland, and they got an appropriation last year for over $1 million.
And I would think they're going to be working pretty hard to bring something to the table in hopes that we renew next year, because if they don't yield any fruit, I think it's going to be hard for this board to sit here and give them any more business if we were to act on it tonight. So anyway, it's a lot to consider, but it's outside the box from what I've seen in the past. Are there a lot of other cities doing this that you're aware of?
There's a growing number of cities. Cities are realizing that there is merit in making requests, particularly for appropriations to come from the state bond bill. And it's a practice that's becoming more common, and I think you'll see it become even more common in the future. And what's been very common for a while is for cities to have a full-time state and local program staffer. Some larger cities may even have multiple staffers that work state and federal programs.
What is their annual fee if we were to hire them? On an annual basis, what would that be?
Well, it's negotiable. This fee was negotiated down significantly from where the negotiation started. So this would be $30,000 for the next seven months. I think the contract actually breaks that down to a monthly figure. Are you looking at it, Mr. Latimer?
$4,285.71.
It would be great if they could help us in that shortfall that we've got in the PD. I understand we're going to hear shortly. So, thank you.
Alderman Wynn.
I guess my question is, I knew nothing about this until Saturday when I opened up the newspaper and saw it, so I was pleasantly surprised, should I say. Of course, I noticed last night that the supervisors have taken no action, and they're going to do an RFP. Who decides that this is the best lobbying firm for the city of Starkville? I mean, just like the retail strategies, people came tonight, did a presentation. Why couldn't some of these people come tonight and do a presentation? I'm very concerned, and I need to read something so that the audience and the public will understand something. And this was in my board packet, and it's talking about some payments. Payments for services shall be made as outlined below. Payments shall be made electronically by Starkville to Cornerstone in 7 advanced monthly payments, $4,285.71. That number again is $4,285.71, and that's 7 payments, plus reasonable and customary out-of-pocket expenses with any out-of-town travel being approved in advance by the Starkville Board of Aldermen. Starkville shall make the first payment of the fee within 30 days of this agreement and is executed, and monthly thereafter. Payment shall be made electronically by Oktibbeha County to Cornerstone in 7 monthly payments of $4,285.71, plus reasonable and customary out-of-pocket expenses with any out-of-town travel being approved in advance by Oktibbeha County Board of Supervisors. So that's speaking to our Board of Supervisors. But I'm going to go back over the other one. It's talking about us, the board, the city of Starkville, using taxpayers' dollars for a lobbying firm that didn't come here tonight, we don't know anything about. Alderman Little says he's called some of his contacts, but where were they tonight? Who is it that one person decides that this firm would be the appropriate fit for the city of Starkville? It can be brought forward tonight. I can tell you that I'm not going to support it. And this out-of-town travel with them coming to us for us to approve their advance pay, I'm not going to do it. The residents of Ward 2 would not want me to be irresponsible with their tax dollars as it relates to this. I yield the floor, Mr. Mayor.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman Walker.
The biggest question I had about this is, I think, again, you're talking about, for our $30,000, while it's not a huge sum of money, it is a sum of money that we're looking at within the already not budgeted in the fiscal year. Commend the mayor for finding a way to be able to pay for that. Essentially, for this legislative session is what we're looking at this contract being. The biggest question that I had about whether or not we need a lobbying firm to represent the city of Starkville was, do we have something specific in mind? And what I heard tonight is what we're about to hear from a shortfall likely from the police department budget. I think that is a very legitimate shortfall where a lobbying in Jackson may actually benefit us in the short term. So that is something I am willing to consider. I also am a little bit familiar with this group through the grapevine and know that they are definitely very good at what they do. I'm certainly certain that there are other lobbying groups that do an equally good job. I think right now we have a lot of things that are potentially that have potential to happen in Starkville, whether that's the police department being renovated, whether that's the Highway 12 Boulevard coming into fruition, and having somebody that could speak specifically to those issues in both Jackson and DC. I am willing to consider using the mayor's appropriated money in his budget for a seven-month trial to see can it generate any dividends on the back end, and if not, it is something that clearly we can look at moving forward.
And I'm asking for this because I need the help. It's long and short of it. I can tell you I routinely make requests in the legislative process, and last year we were successful with a request, and it's the first time I've had the assistance of a governmental affairs consultant who was helping us through another organization at that time. I do think it makes us more effective. I can assure you I will be taking these issues to the legislature regardless. There's certainly no guarantee we will be successful if I have this assistance, but I think the probability is much higher with this assistance that we'll be successful. Alderman Maynard.
Move approval.
Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve of the professional services agreement with Cornerstone Governmental Affairs, LLC, as presented. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second? Second. Motion has been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Maynard, you wish to speak on the merits?
I agree with Alderman Walker. I think for the money, this is a good investment for the return. We'll see how well they do, but I think in the long run, if they're successful, then we're going to be successful.
Further discussion? Alderman Carter.
I'll vote against this because I don't know who is anybody from Cornerstone here?
They're not, and I didn't ask them to be here. They certainly would have been here if I had asked them and told them it was essential for them to be here. So that's my responsibility.
I just really don't know who I'm voting on. I think there's tons and tons of lobbying companies and firms that can do this. And again, I have no idea who we're approving for tonight. And that $4,200 a month could be used to fix a fire truck or fix a sign or pave a little bit of road or something else. I think we're going to get a direct return on investment instead of basically, I think, throwing this money in a black hole. And to be honest with you, I don't know really what they represent from a socio, or even, I don't know who these people are. I don't know who they represent and really what they're lobbying for and who they're tied in with in Washington. And so with that, I'll just be voting against this anonymous firm. Thank you.
I will say they are a very reputable firm, and if you look at their client list, you will see they're predominantly corporate clients that would be amongst the most respected corporations in the state of Mississippi.
And you may have my vote if they were here, but that's a lot of money, and without even a PowerPoint presentation or something to put a name with a face, and I just don't feel comfortable with it.
Alderman Webb.
Mayor, let me say this. You have my number. You called me before when you needed my assistance on anything. Reach out to us. Call us on the telephone. Say, hey, stop by my office. I've got this going on. I think it would be great for our city. Sometimes if we convey our message, we can get the assistance that we need. But to place this on us tonight, when we know nothing about it, and asking to send these people 7 times, 4,000 some advance and travel for them, and nobody in the room has seen anybody from Cornerstone tonight come and even try and do a PowerPoint presentation for us. Nobody. I yield the floor.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. By a vote of 4 in favor with 3 against, this motion passes. The next matter on the agenda is a presentation for the renovation of the police department by Chief Frank R. Nichols and Gary Schaefer. Do y'all want to take a break for this presentation?
Yes.
All right. Everybody's been sitting here for a couple hours. We're going to take a brief recess. Y'all go ahead and get set up, and we'll hear you when you get back. Without objection.
I think we need to halt this work that this architecture is doing so we won't incur any more costs. The reason that I say that to the public is that we do not need to incur any additional expense with architect until this board decide which method that they want to utilize. Now, 8 months ago, we were told it's $3 million. At the most, we actually said $3 million in case there's cost overrun. We're told $2.6 million, but I'm not convinced that the figure won't be higher in the next 8 months. And then just straight down the middle talk. I mean, I can't get any clean, no disrespect to anybody. I mean, in the next 4 or 5 months, they may tell me this is worth $6.4 million, because I was convinced 8 months ago that $3 million was the top. So I would suggest that we just hear this presentation tonight, and I think we need to quickly explore the other options, and the only other options I can think of, and my colleagues have great minds, they may have some others, would be the Cadence Bank or building this from the ground up. And from what I see tonight, at $5.4 million, I would like to see us eliminate this option here from the current police department. If it's gonna be $5.4 million, I want a complete building, I want a first class. I'm tired of talking about this police department building. I'm tired of just hearing presentation. I'm tired of looking at drawings. I'm ready to vote on full funding. So whatever it takes to get full funding, I'm gonna vote for it, but it gotta be a first class building. I'm gonna vote on whatever it takes. If I got to build a ground up, if they tell me it's gonna be from the ground up, it's gonna be $5.5 million, I'm gonna vote on the funding to do it. If it's gotta be catered, I'm gonna vote on the funding to do it, but I don't think it's of fairness just to our city and to our taxpayers and to the police department for us to say, well, we're gonna spend $3 million because that's all the money we got right now, but we're gonna discuss that back in October 2017. As fast as this city growing, we got to put this project to rest. We got to leave this project behind us. I'm about done, Mr. Mayor, but we're at a point now where we got to just make these real hard, tough decisions. And I don't mind making it. And the conclusion here is, if we can build a new building for $5 million and we don't have 3, I'm gonna vote for a way to make it to 5. And I know what the options are. If we got to get cadence, and this is still 5.4, and we don't have 3 million, I'm gonna vote to get to 5. So this is not the ticket to it. Mr. Schaefer has done great work. If we can just suspend his work right now, put it on hold so we'll incur any additional expense until this board can deliberate and meticulously think through what is the best way to proceed. We're at a very critical juncture. We don't need to rush, but I think maybe over the next 2 or 3 or 4 meetings, Maybe it's no later than May. I mean, we can get there, but we need to make some real quick decisions in a very good way. And I know the chief of police said he wants a building, but it needs to be a first-class, good, quality, taxpayers building. It needs to be a good class, first class. And we just got to do that. We don't need to be trying to make something do just to say we got something. Would you do that for yourselves? If this was your home, would you just be trying to get by? No, because you want the best. We just have to reprioritize. We have to refocus, have greater priorities. And the vice mayor is willing to do that. I guess if whatever revenue it takes to get there, Mr. Chairman, if we don't have $3 million to build a new building, Tupelo built one for $10 million. I mean, look, we're not second class to Tupelo. We're top of the line. We are top of the line. So I just want to challenge myself. I'm talking to myself as well. I'm not preaching to anybody. I'm challenging myself, to our mayor, and to the board. Let's make the tough decision. If we have to build it from the ground, build it from the ground. I'm tired of talking about this police department. I have seen it all over this place, even down at the old Walmart where the bowling alley. We got that land was donated to us free down there. The city sold that space down there. I have seen all kind of options. And at this point in my life here on this board, this is one project I want to see come to an end. I want to see us to put it to bed and put it to rest. Mr. Mayor, this was not about taking up time, but I just want to speak respectfully. I've been here from day one to this day. And the only way we can make this project a reality, we got to quit talking about it and do something constructively, meaningfully. I've seen these drawings and the designs and the cost estimates. We got to make the tough decisions. And I think the taxpayers of this city, and I'm going to say this, I'm going to close, Mayor. I think the taxpayers of this city will be pleased with us if we can build a very nice building downtown. It was rejected on the bypass some time ago for $5 million. If we can build it downtown, have a first-class facility, I think the taxpayer will be greatly pleased with us, and they will be very appreciative about that fact. And so I just want to say those things, Mr. Mayor, and I just want to, and I'm in support of what I just said, Mr. Chairman. I know you're probably wondering, Mr. Vice Mayor, how we're going to get there. So whatever you're thinking, we're going to get there. I know you, man, what you're thinking. How we're going to get there? We got 3, you got to get to 5. You got me?
I got you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Mayor, you have the floor.
All right, let me make a few comments before I open the floor up again. That is to say, I think there may be some confusion about the $5 million figure. If you'll remember, now the costs have changed some. There's no doubt going through the schematic portion. But when you approved the $3 million bond issuance, you approved it for a partial renovation. The additional roughly 10,000 square feet of future growth space was part of a larger program. Those costs, I think your estimate at that point in time was the total program would have been in the neighborhood of $3.8 million. So that cost has grown from 3.8 to roughly 5.4. But that's not the program that you set out on when you approved a $3 million bond issuance. Now your costs have grown on the partial program as well, to the point where if you stay on this program, you are going to have to make some decisions about some pieces of the program to cut. However, I would disagree with the Vice Mayor that the partial program still remains in large part intact. The vast majority of the partial program that you discussed in concept over a year ago is this program. There have been portions of it you've trimmed about 1,300 square feet off of it. Is basically what it comes down to since that point going through the schematic process. But everything else and the purpose of the program, which was to provide space for today's officers' needs, is intact with that program. The other mandate that you had was the resurfacing of the parking lot. That's intact with the program. So I think it sets up a false comparison to compare it to a $5.4 million program, because that is the total program building for all of our future needs now. And the decision that we made when we set out on this project was that we were going to meet today's needs now and meet future needs in the future. Now, with respect to looking at other properties and looking at building a new building, I do know something about this because I have been down that road myself. And I can tell you there are two things that should assure you that if you go down that road, it's going to be a much more expensive program than this program. The first is the last time we did that, we did exactly what the Vice Mayor suggested. We looked at a downtown property, a property in the downtown area, and the construction of a new building. The total price tag of that project was $8.6 million. And that was over 4 years ago. So that cost, you can be assured, has gone up since then. In addition to that, you can also be assured that that cost will be higher because of how these construction estimates have been prepared. Gary is using a straight cost per square footage formula, and renovation construction is valued at two-thirds the cost of new construction. So for your construction program, if you discuss a new building program, you can add a third to the cost on your construction program. That being said, one of the issues with this project has always been that there are an infinite number of possibilities to how you can do it. And we have debated them, and we have debated them, and we have debated them as a community. Now, we finally turned a corner when we passed a resolution of intent to issue bonds. And for the first time in the course of this entire debate, there was no petition, no referendum. You have $3 million in bonds that are ready for you to issue, and a project that can be done. And it is going to provide first-class facilities when that project is done. I would urge you to stay on the program that you've been traveling down. I believe it is the right course. I believe it is the course that is going to get a project done. And I think if we turn back from that course, we are back in the wilderness, potentially years, if not decades, away from having any new police facilities built at all. So I'll close by saying there is no such thing as a perfect program. I have the utmost confidence in these two options that are presented, that they will serve in a manner that's going to be better than the vast majority of our peers, the needs of our police force from a facility standpoint. And I think we've worked too hard to turn back at this point. Finally, I would say the only contingency in my mind that's still out there in this program is whether we get additional funding in this legislative cycle. What I am asking you for tonight, and I don't need you to take action, but I would ask for a full discussion, because if we're not going there, we do need to. We do need to stop on the track that we're on, because we're spending money on this. So what I would ask you to consider is these two options, and in either of these options, we control our own destiny at this point. We either get funding in the legislative process, and that goes towards doing the Option 2 program, or if we get nothing out of the legislative process, we go forward with a construction process beginning this summer, just as we had planned on the Option 1 program. I am completely comfortable with both of those options. I am not comfortable with any of the aforementioned options, and let me be as clear as I possibly can. I think it is a mistake to turn back at this point. Discussion. Alderman Walker.
Mr. Schaefer, thank you for the presentation. This is definitely helpful in trying to make a decision. Could you speak to the price comparison versus new construction a little bit versus renovation?
Very much correct. The rule of thumb is that renovated construction is 2/3 the cost of new construction. And makes sense because this building already has a foundation system, already has a slab, already has walls, already has a roof. It may leak, but it has a roof. And so those materials that are already in place, you don't have to buy when you're trying to build a new building. So if and we did this, we did the new building out at the bypass. That required, of course, foundation system, all the utilities had to be brought to it. But you can see there's easily a third more just to do a new building versus the renovated one. So I'm with the mayor in terms of the notion that the most cost-effective first-class facility, in my mind, is renovating this building.
Thank you. Chief, looking at the program for this, looking at the full-fledged program versus the partial program with option 1 or 2, can you be candid with what your thoughts are in terms of does option 1, if we were to have to go that route, and I agree with the vice mayor, if we can find a way to get to the $5 million, if it turns us into a first-class facility, that is something that I'm willing to try to find the money to go make happen. So with that being said, are there program elements that are in option 1 and or option 2 that satisfy the requirements for the PD at this point?
Alderman Walker, I'll say this. Option 1 could satisfy our need. You know, but why spend $3 million if we're going to do a partial? I would rather have option 2. Option 2 would satisfy us for our needs right now and possibly 10, 15 years down the road. Plus, you're looking at a building that's been renovated on the outside, exterior. To me, that would be more suitable. But I would take option 1. We'll take what we can get because we got to do better than what we got now. Because we don't have the air conditioning, we don't have a heater half the time down there, so we got to do better than we're doing now. Otherwise, morale is going to start going down.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Mayor Bowder.
You may.
Chief, in between now and the next board meeting, could you get with Mr. Schaefer and from option 1 build out, and we may have that in front of us, but to see where that differential is, and so we can look at if we add the salad port,
We've already done it.
is all that in the paperwork you gave us tonight?
Okay. This should be there, but if any of the board has specific questions, happy to sit down with you. It's so difficult to understand plans this way. Happy to answer any questions that you would have.
To answer your question, the difference between option 1 and option 2 is the exterior. Option 1 gives us the same thing option 2 gives as far as heating and cooling space. Option 2 just adds the basement area, which is utilized for youth court personnel, and the parking lot and the gates.
And storage in the back though, right? Wasn't storage in the back? Evidence storage?
Oh, yes, property and evidence. And the salad port. Yes.
And the salad port.
Exterior, yes.
Yeah.
Option 2 addresses security that option 1 does not address. It secures the parking lot, it secures the entrance from the salad port into the booking area. So it is a much more secure facility with able to work with that exterior space.
Not only that, it looks a lot better. Option 2 has a plaza out front where the public will feel welcome to come out there and sit down and have lunch, things of that nature. You know, we want this to be inviting to people.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Gary, could you talk a little bit more about the roof for a second? Because it strikes me, under option 2, you've got a little bit of room, and the roof, given the discussion tonight, may be the top priority for that. In option 1, it may mean looking at the program and seeing where additional cuts can be made. But I think there was, or at least I was, a little bit confused as to whether the repair of the roof would lead actually to a fully functioning roof over the long term, or it was something that would be problematic in the future.
It would be problematic. The roof leaks, I believe, in 3 different spaces, 3 different places. So if that's 3% of the roof, 97% of the roof doesn't leak. But so our intention in option 1 is to make the necessary repairs so it doesn't leak. That does not come with any guarantee. So option 2, where we put an entire roof on, or if the board requests to put the roof in option 1, then that would give us a 20-year water tightness roof on it. So again, this is, I have no opinion on this. If that's a priority that the board would like, we will address that and put it in, and something will have to come out to do that, but we're totally willing to do whatever the board would like in terms of their priorities.
Okay. Perfect. All right, let me take a moment. I'm sorry. You let me get going again. Given that feedback, to summarize where we are and what I'm asking for tonight, I think given those comments, the roof probably needs to take a higher priority in the discussion than it has up until this point. Now, again, I offered the comments I offered at the outset of all of this because I wanted everybody to be sure where we are right now. We are not at the point where we have to make all of these difficult decisions that are the final point of the program. You know, when we're down to the end and everything's designed and we know exactly what the budget is, then we have to make very difficult decisions about what goes and what stays. We're not there yet. As a matter of fact, we're not at a point where a decision has to be made at all. We are at the point where if we don't do anything, then Gary's going to continue to design, and he's going to design everything out for option 2. So provided that we have all of the funding for option 2, we're ready to begin constructing in July. And that's my recommendation, that we do that. We can do that within the $245,000 that you've already allocated for this. But also, one of the reasons I wanted to have this discussion now, rather than just tell Gary to keep on designing and we'll see you in July, is because I thought y'all needed to be involved in this discussion at this stage. So I don't want to get to the point where we're trying to make the very, very difficult decisions that we don't have to make yet. But I do want to check up with you before I initiate this significant design work and we push forward towards a July construction program. Alderman Little.
After listening to you guys, your presentation, I also believe that renovating the old City Hall would be the most cost-effective way to get the PD where they need to be. And I would be hopeful that, you know, we could do both phases, and maybe something to come to fruition with this, you know, lobbying group, or get us at least closer to that target. I'm hopeful and optimistic that may happen. But that's a big difference from what we had discussed about a year ago, last summer, as far as what our plans and intentions were. And everybody knows how much construction is going on right now in the downtown peripheral area. I don't know that we could afford a piece of property downtown if we were to choose to go outside and try to do some sort of new construction. And we're going to have a difficult enough time to afford just the renovation in and of itself. So I think we need to keep tracking forward, and I think we can have a good product in the end, and hopefully something that bear fruit in Jackson.
go forward. Alderman Nguyen, then Alderman Carter.
Chief, let me say this to you. I am so supportive of you, your personnel. You all need a home that you can call your own, a home that you can be proud of. This has been going on since before I got my position on the board. And of course, it has nothing to do with you, but I've got to go there and say this tonight. If 4 members of the last Board of Aldermen had just pushed the pause button, all of us could be under one roof down there at Cadence with a little bit of renovations done. And we wouldn't be sitting here in this building that I can't navigate myself from one place to the other because of the design of it. And again, this has nothing to do with you, but I thought that I would get this elephant out of the room. So it's sad and unfortunate, but you and your guys, your personnel need a place that you can call home. You need that for work, you need that for morale. And I'm going to support whatever it is that our board needs to do. We need to do whatever it is that we need to do. I hate being nickel and dime. Tell me what we need to pay and let us make the decision. But to come back months later and we're talking about an enormous amount of money, it's just, this is not what I wanted to hear tonight. Mr. Mayor, I yield the floor at this time.
Alderman Carter.
It's 8:30. We've gone through 6 items. We've got 24 more to go with no consent. And I'd like to table this. And, I think Alderman Perkins has got a lot of good thoughts. I'm not against putting y'all in a new facility. If it's less than this, I think Alderman Lewis got good thoughts. It may not be done in time because of the land prices. I don't think it's over, but I mean, it is 8:30 and we've got 24 more items to go through one by one, so I'd like to table this, Mayor.
Motion has been made to table the discussion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. It's unanimous. Thank you. The next matter on the agenda is the discussion. Alderman Walker is going to recuse himself from the next matter on the agenda. It is the discussion and consideration of the special event of the MSU chapter of Landscape Architect Professionals 40th anniversary.
Move approval, Mayor, with the proof of insurance within 30 days of the event.
Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve of the special event request by the MSU chapter of Landscape Architect.
At the advice of council, I'm going to redo the motion. Move approval, a resolution authorizing and directing the issuance of tax increment financing revenue bonds, Series 2016 of the City of Starkville, Mississippi, in the maximum principal amount of $4 million allocated to the TIF portion out of the authorized amount of $8,500,000 pertaining to the entire TIF district. Mayor, I have it reduced to writing.
Please pass it forward.
It just spells out 8.5 the entire TIF district.
Since the motion has been read and it's been reduced to writing, I will not ask for it to be reread without objection. Seeing no objection, do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Nguyen, do you speak on the merits?
No, I do.
Discussion.
Let me say this. Mr. Nicholas, if you will you please stand? Thank you so much for your contribution to our city. The first part has, you've spent $8 million. At the completion of this, it'll be a total of, what, about $22 million in investment into our city? I want to say thank you so much for investing into the city of Starkville that is home to Bulldog Country. Thank you, Mr. Nicholas.
Thank you very much. Thank you, the Board of Aldermen, for y'all's support.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Saying none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is a discussion and consideration of a TIF bond resolution. No, that's what we just did. Discussion and consideration of a resolution regarding downtown parking enforcement.
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
You may.
I've made one amendment here at the table that takes into consideration the concerns that were raised by the citizens earlier, just specifying how far we're going down Lafayette Street. So that first clause remains the same, Main Street from Jackson Street to Meg Street. The second clause is different, Lafayette Street from Jefferson to Lampkin Street. That's the only change. Jefferson replaces Main Street.
Same move.
Motion has been made by do you want to, as revised by the city attorney? All right, motion has been made by Alderman Carver to approve of a resolution regarding downtown parking enforcement as presented and revised by the city attorney. Alderman Carver, is that your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Carver, you wish to speak on the matter?
No, sir.
Discussion. Any discussion? Any discussion? Alderman Carver?
I was gonna say too, it was really refreshing when the lady came up from the community theater to know that y'all had already addressed that, and I think that the time mentioned and the time posted in this resolution are quite adequate and would keep the flow of traffic in the downtown. I think that the downtown area, I moved here in 1995, so I don't remember the olden days, but they said when it used to be half vacant, and all I know is the vibrant downtown we have now. So I thank all the business owners that are here tonight, and the ones that aren't here that may be watching on the TV, but thank you all.
Further discussion. Alderman Little?
I'd like to clarify that this is just a resolution. It's not changing, it's not an actual ordinance. The ordinance has been out there for some time now. I'm not sure exactly how long. It's always had the 2 hours in there, but it just did not specify what those 2 hours, what the time frame were, which really handicapped the TD in trying to enforce it because there were no set hours posted. It was just 2 hours. So I think that's going to benefit them going forward, and it's also going to help the business owners. During break, Mr. Kelly spoke with me, and he said since they've been enforcing the 2 hour parking, his business has gone up about 15%. So hopefully that's going to generate more revenues for all the businesses down there when we have the parking turning over a little more and get the employees that are kind of abusing the limit and get some patrons in there for you. Thank you.
Further discussion. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is a discussion and consideration of the approval of travel requests for motion has been made by Alderman Carver to approve of a travel request for Code Enforcement Officer Jeff Lyles to attend the Mississippi Association of Code Enforcement Education Conference from March 16 through 18 in Ridgeland, Mississippi, at a cost not to exceed $700 as presented. Alderman Carver, that's your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second? Second. Motion has been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Carver, do you wish to speak on the matter?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is a discussion and consideration of an appeal of the recommendation by Planning and Zoning Commission for RZ 15-05, a request for rezoning of several parcels located on the north side of University Drive between Camp Avenue and Rue du Grand Fromage with parcel numbers 101C-00, parcel number 101C-00-001, parcel number 101D-00-001, parcel number 101D-00-002, parcel number 101D-00-003, and parcel number 101D-00-004. Mr. Sanders, would you like to introduce?
We'll let, just give us 1 moment to get set up. Mr. Hamlin will make a presentation.
Okay.
RZ 15-05 is a request by Christopher Kritzman and Capital Growth Properties to rezone 6 properties totaling 7.58 acres from C2, T5, T4 to T6. The properties are located on the north side of University Camp and Rue Grand Fromage. If you can see on this map, Rue Grand Fromage is here, Camp Avenue is here. Just to orient you, the Bulldog Burger, formerly the Bulldog Deli, located right here. This is a survey provided by the applicant showing the different properties. They kind of differ from what's shown on the tax map when they actually did the research, and here's a survey. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the request based on a change in condition in the area on October 13, 2015, with the following 6 conditions. Buildings within 170 feet of University Drive not to exceed 4 stories in height. First floor buildings adjacent to University Drive are to be retail. Buildings along Western Line adjacent to R1 properties will be required to have a buffer. In addition to the site being required to meet the requirements of the current stormwater ordinance, post-development runoff cannot exceed pre-development runoff at sub-basin discharge for 2 to 10-year events. A traffic study will need to be submitted to city staff prior to Board of Aldermen meetings. This condition has been met, and there will be a construction easement via College View Street. A petition of property owners owning 31.7% of the properties within 160 feet of the subject properties appealing the Commission's recommendation was presented to city staff on November 16th of 2015, and 43 owners of record were notified by mail, a sign, and legal ad on February 1st, 2016. And if you have any questions, I could address them.
Questions or comments for Mr. Hamlin, Mr. Sanders, Alderman Mayor?
What are you guys recommending, and what are they asking for?
They're asking for, as you can see on the zoning portion of the map, the light brown ones are T5, currently zoned. The red property is zoned C2, which is currently residential property at the end of Camp Avenue. And then the purple property is zoned T4, which is a residential property along Camp Avenue. And what they're requesting to do is take all of these parcels and change the zoning to a T6.
T5.
T5, sorry.
No, it's clear. But let's go with the procedure though. Let staff answer questions, and then the applicant can say what they want to do if they want to downzone Alderman Mayor.
Further questions or comments from the members of the board?
Because the record is T6 right now.
Yes.
Any further questions or comments from the members of the board? Any further questions or comments from the members of the board? Seeing none, we'll move to the public hearing phase of the rezoning. And ordinarily, but we'd hear from the appellant first. Mr. Camp, are you here on behalf of Camp Properties?
We don't have anything to say as long as they downgrade to T5.
All right, so would you like to hear from the applicant first and reserve your right to make any rebuttal? Okay, we'll hear from the applicant first in the public hearing.
I'm John Moore, attorney for the applicant. Based on what Mr. Camp said, we're going to make this brief. You're well aware of our report as part of the presentation tonight, included in your agendas. About a 200-page report, which I'm sure you don't want to hear recited by us. But based on Mr. Camp's comments, I do want to hit on just a few things. We are asking for a down zone from T6 to T5. And the fuller parcels, there are 3 parcels that are already zoned T5, so we're 4 parcels. So we're withdrawing those 4, and they will stay T5. The 2 parcels that we're seeking the rezoning are the Bell properties, one of which is zoned C2, the other one is zoned T4. The interesting thing about that is Mr. Bell's family owns 3 parcels there, and they have 3 different zonings. But we're trying to get these 2 parcels to combine with the fuller parcel to get them all T5. So the 2 parcels that we're trying to rezone are 101C-00-1 owned by HBC III, which is a Bell property, 101C-00-001, which is B Square property, which is owned by the Bell family. In order to get a zone change, you have to prove either an error in the map, which I think you can clearly see, putting a C2 zone behind the residential property off of the street right away is clearly error. Also having a T6 property owned by an individual and then a T4 property in between it, I think is an obvious error as well. Also, we feel like based on the change of conditions in the neighborhood generally, that it supports a change based on that too. If you look at what activity has occurred since the city enacted the Transect District in 2012, the city's issued approximately $22 million worth of building permits between Russell Street and University Drive. A significant other factor of change has been the growth of the university. The president seeks to have 22,000 students plus within the next year or so. And to do that, we've got to have a place to put these students. The university has been gracious enough to allow me to talk to the people in the Student Affairs Office. And they have, based on their research, indicated that these type projects closer to campus are more beneficial to students because, one, it increases the probability that that student will remain on campus and that they will use the facilities close to town, close to campus. They say the further a student gets away from campus, the greater the percentage of chance that they will leave the university, become disgruntled and leave the university at some point in time. So they are really optimistic about having a facility this close to campus. A couple of questions that have come up about this have involved traffic. What is this going to do with traffic on University Drive? Well, if you go back to 1993, the MDOT study, which is in the report, shows that during that time frame, we had 7,000 plus cars a day going down University Drive. We're now down to approximately 4,000 cars a day. This is going to add 700 plus bedrooms, so that amount of traffic should be absorbed really easily. You also look at the traffic study that the city required to be prepared. It indicates they rate traffic flow by A, B, C, D, F, A and B being acceptable and good levels of traffic, C being just okay, and F is a failure. Based on the traffic studies at the intersections that are shown in the report, it was all the categories of traffic were either A or B. So that should not be an issue. We also, if you remember tonight, Jeremiah Dumas was here discussing the rapid transit for the university. So my staff and I went and prepared our own traffic study by using the window and the lunch tables at the Bulldog Deli. During lunch hour, saw Jason go by several times in his vehicle. But the thing we found most interesting about it was over a 4-day period of time, the number of cars going east and west was relatively the same. And within 5 vehicles, the count tally from 12 to one was within 5 vehicles. So the average was 275 cars between 12 and 1, each going, one going, equal amount going east and the equal amount going west. The real interesting thing that we found was the number of people using the bicycle path. I didn't expect to see that many, but we were seeing 35 to 40 kids on that bicycle trail between 12 and 1 every day. And we saw almost an equal number of people walking. And we also found, based on what Jeremiah Dumas was saying to be true, that rapid transit bus, they have to be on a certain schedule. They were within minutes of when they were supposed to be there every single day we were there. There were 2 vehicles going to campus twice an hour, 2 leaving campus twice an hour. There were kids getting on the transit. And also, if you look at the traffic study by the Skipper firm, it says students that live within a half a mile of campus prefer either to walk, take public transportation, or ride a bicycle. And we found that to be true. It was approximately 20% of the kids were doing that already. Now, we feel like a location this good is going to really encourage students to ride the transportation system. And the reason for it is, way back in the day when I was in school, you go down University Drive, you go to the business school, you go past the band hall, you park way back, as far east on campus as you can get, and then you walk back further than it is from our location to the classrooms now. So there's no reason for kids not to either take the transit or ride a bicycle or walk. So if they decide now they want to go to campus, they're going to have to go around the north end of Boston Extension instead of the south end like we used to do. They're going to have to go up to the basketball stadium, catch their shuttle anyway, and ride to class. So there's no reason for them not to catch it in front of Old Dog Deli and ride to class. Now, there's been an awful lot of talk about what the economic impact of this project will be. And I found that to be really interesting, especially tonight, because we've had an awful lot of talk about money tonight, or lack thereof. So, based on the current expectation of what this project's going to cost, it's a $65 million project. Because it's a commercial project, there's no homestead exemption. So the assessment's 150% of the value, plus the millage rate of approximately, I'm going to just use a round number of 0.130, which is going to make this project about 13 million, 1.3 million, I'm getting it. 1.3 million estimated tax revenue, of which the city will get their program portion based on the millage rates. That's $110,000 a month. That's a significant amount of money. That doesn't even account the personal property taxes that will be assessed, washers and dryers, equipment for the gym, all the personal property assets that are assessed separately. Now, those kind of funds will go a long way toward, well, two things they'll do for sure right away is they'll pay for both the contracts the city entered into tonight forever, for the retail advisor and for the lobbyist. Those have just been paid for with this project. It'll go a long way toward paying, the city decide they want to build a new police station, they'll pay the interest on that, for sure. So instead of taking an old building, and my sons have done some remodeling, instead of putting a gold ring and pig's nose, making this for the same amount of money, get something new that would be satisfactory for a long time. And what the chief said about that police station building, it's absolutely true. At least 2 to 3 times a week when I pull into my office, those air conditioning units are right behind my building. The carrier people are working on those continuously. And in the past, before we got this new city hall, it wasn't anything to go into the city clerk's office and see 5 and 10 gallon buckets catching water when it would rain. And we've got professional people coming in here to do business, and we're catching water in garbage cans. You know, at least we've got the city hall cured. And so that's something that the city needs to consider too. You think about what Mark Nicholas has just done, at least you pointed this out, he's spending 20-some odd $million. So there may be the opportunity to do things the right way now.
Mr. Vice Mayor's got a question for you.
Mr. Board, what do you want from this board?
T5.
Okay.
The only condition that I have an issue with is the only issue I have a condition with is the requirement that we get a construction entrance that we may or may not be able to get from a private individual. We're gonna make every attempt to get it. If we cannot get it, we'll get a letter from him saying we can't get it.
Got it. Mayor, let me yield to the gentleman from 4. He's familiar with this. Gentleman, could you give us a motion?
Yes, sir. I'd like to make just a.
You go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, we can't, if they still want to present, I can't stop his presentation.
No.
We do have him on the clock though.
No, this is just lawyer talk here. He's good.
How many minutes did he have? He started with 15.
He's good.
So, Mr. Moore, you've got approximately 7 minutes remaining.
Mr. Moore, I wasn't trying to cut you short. You want to spend the rest of your time?
We do have a amended traffic report because there were a couple of typos in it, but the typograph players had nothing to do with what their analysis was. They inadvertently stuck a wrong university instead of the city state. say a couple more things, then I'll just make it real quick. Talking about the economics, the ARC Community Design Charrette, there was one comment in here that I really found very interesting. It stated that and it's part of the record, that Starkville is losing about $60 million a year in the retail business to other cities, which I'm extremely happy that y'all entered into that agreement tonight. Maybe this will absorb some of that. We need that money. We can need it for a police station. We don't need it leaving and going to other places like Tupelo. We're also the only city that's growing in population. Columbus is actually losing population. However, they are gaining $289 million a year of money from other places. How are they doing that? Why can't we do that? There's no reason that we can't. And I want to, one thing to do is thank the board. This has been the most progressive board that we have had in years. I've been doing this 30 years, and we have not had this type of progressive attitude, and it's going to improve our city tremendously. If you get on the internet and you look up the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, they rank the universities by quality of life for students. We're ranked 14th. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that, but Oxford's ranked 3rd. I don't necessarily agree with that either because I've lived in both places. But, that report wasn't put together by me. It was put together by a group out of Atlanta. So every time we get a chance to improve our situation for our students, our community, we need to take advantage of it. There's no downside to this. And I would appreciate the board giving us the T5 zoning. Now, you've seen some schematic drawings under the T6. Those will have to change because we're now going with a T5 category. So just keep that in mind. And we appreciate the support that the board's given us, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Now, at this time, Mr. Camp, would you like to say anything in rebuttal?
Very quick.
Come to the podium.
Although I see possible potential long-term negative effects of this project, we've said nothing but from the start that we would be completely supportive of this project if it was zoned T5. If they went for T5, and we're people of our word, and we stand by that, and we will be supportive of this if it goes to T5. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Camp. At this time, is there now anyone wishing to make further comments? Anyone wishing to make comments may do so by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Is there anyone wishing to make comments? Anyone wishing to make comments? Seeing no one, we'll move into discussion by the board. Alderman Walker.
I will be very brief. I need that. While he's bringing the clicker, I would like to say that I appreciate the hard work of city staff and Mr. Moore and everyone else of getting here, and just really wanted to see where we are. This was the T districts that were codified by the previous board in January of 2012. And I think one of the things that we are all very fortunate of setting to this table is that through places like the MML, that we have training, and part of that training is land use planning that I think is very beneficial when we're trying to make these big time decisions. And so I just wanted to sort of rebut a little bit the change in condition, but I agree that I think T5 is the right move. I also believe that T5 is the right move for my neighborhood, and I'm going to briefly explain why. So when you look at, this is just an aerial image of the Cotton District and the surrounding area just to help people identify. The subject property up for rezoning is right down here, just beyond the map. But this is the Cotton District, Oddfellow Cemetery to the west, the university to the east. This is, to me, what is really important about looking at this as being T5 and not T6, and what is really important about the character of this neighborhood. Yes, there are nice buildings, nice architecture that make up the Cotton District and make it what it is. But what really makes the character of the Cotton District is this well-connected streets that form blocks. That is the key that makes the Cotton District the Cotton District. When you look at the average block length is 360 feet long if you look at all these different blocks. That is what makes the Cotton District walkable. That is what helps give it its unique character. And if you look at the size of the lots and the size of the buildings, they're in proportion to human scale, and they are at the scale of the street. And the block length is a very important component of that. So just by comparison, the city is also undergoing a comprehensive plan. And so I thought it would be important to see how is what our current zoning has, but what is also the future zoning have. And Phil Walker, who is of no relation to me, that is doing, as part of the Walker Collaborative, that is doing that plan, looked at this, and he said, looking at their site, talking about the entirety of the site, the front part of their site is along University is an urban corridor, while the balance is designated traditional neighborhood existing. Looking at the internal driving aisles being more of a formal street system, that would make these aisles more like a street as opposed to parking. He said this comment looks at existing traditional neighborhoods that indicates buildings must front onto streets. He talks about here looking at the change in condition, talking about, this is from Mr. Moore's report previously, that talks about looking at the changing of condition and looking at the mill as an argument for that, saying in his opinion that it's somewhat physically disjointed, and really the only alternative to adaptive reuse of the mill would have been demolition. And so in summary, it says that the project is more of a feel of a large development than the fine-grained series of buildings relating to blocks, lots, and streets. And I can't iterate that strongly enough, that is in fact what gives the Cotton District its character. It's the fine-grained series of buildings that relate to blocks, lots, and streets. So here's what that means to me in terms of making the argument for changing condition in the neighborhood. Mr. Moore cited 5 things for zoning changes in the report. That is 200 or so pages long. And one of those is Campus Havens Apartments that was from R1 to B1, 300 additions in the Research Park from R1 to B1, C-Spire in the Research Park from R1 to B1. In April, the Catholic Church parking lot on Nash Street rezoned from R1 to B1. And in August of 2015, Jackson Square, which is downtown, rezoned from C2 to T5. Here's what that means. Out of those 5 cases, 3 of those aren't even on the map of what would be considered the T districts of like districts. So I think while it certainly can be made that there has been change of character in the neighborhood, I think that is one that's a little bit harder for me to look at, especially when this was codified in 2012, and all the development that you're seeing along Russell Street and University Drive and the surrounding areas in this district are a result of what was codified in 2012. What I think is clearly the case in this instance is that there is an error in the zoning map. I think the property that is currently zoned C2, if you look at, that's the white parcel that is totally surrounded by T district. I believe that is clearly the case of an error in zoning, and I will be making a motion here shortly to move that to T5. I would also argue that the properties that are T4, there are only 2 properties that are T4 that are west of Camp Avenue proper, and I believe that both of those are error in zoning. We've heard a lot mentioned over the last several planning and zoning meetings about spot zoning. I sat on that planning and zoning board, and I know they take those issues extremely seriously, and they should. However, I think in this case, I think granting the right to T6 would have been an error and set a bad precedent. If you would look at all the property here that is currently zoned T5, if that would all be now T6, it would be the only place in town where you would have T6 directly abutting to T4. That is not what the intent of the T districts are. It is a way to find orderly planned growth. 6 to 5, 5 to 4, 4 to 3, etc. So I think in this case, there is a clear case for zoning error. And looking at the context of the neighborhood, you see the model on the left, affectionately known as the Texas Donut line parking garage with buildings, versus what is known on the right as a Charleston style block. The one on the right is modeled after a district's most successful existing fabric. In our case, in this neighborhood, it would clearly be the Cotton District. In both of these types of scenarios, they accommodate the same number of bedrooms. the buildings are only 2 to 4 stories, that would be equivalent to what you can do in a T5 district. The Cotton District's existing street structure and the neighborhood character are internationally renowned. And they are a great example of this Charleston-style development pattern. So I am supportive of T5, and I hope that we can find a way, as this moves forward from a design standpoint, to find a way to look at that fine grain and that fabric so that can help extend what the character of the Cotton District is. So again, I think we've seen the benefit of what the T District has done for development in Starkville. I think we all would also agree that there are a number of issues that we still have to work through from a code and aesthetics standpoint to get us there. But I think I would make with that said, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to move approval to rezone parcel 101C 00-001.00 from C2 to T5 with specific finding that an error occurred in January 2012 when the subject property was not rezoned as part of the Transect District rezoning. The subject parcel, which is C2, is surrounded by T-District zoning resulting in spot zoning for this property. Therefore, a zoning error has occurred that needs to be addressed to ensure orderly plan growth. I have the following 5 conditions. 1, in addition to the site being required to meet all requirements of the current stormwater ordinance, post-development runoff shall not exceed pre-development runoff at the point of sub-basin discharge for a 2 and a 10-year event. 2, minimum block width length of 200 by 200 feet and a maximum block width length of 400 feet by 400 feet. A maximum lot size of 120 feet width by 220 foot depth. All construction traffic shall use the ingress/egress from College View Drive. And 5, Camp Avenue shall be brought into compliance with city street standards. Reduce that to writing.
All right, Alderman Walker has made a motion. He's read it. He's reduced it to writing without objection. I will not ask for it to be reread. Seeing no objection, do I hear a second? Motion has been seconded by Alderman Maynard. Alderman Walker, do you wish to speak on the matter?
I'm probably out of order, but Jason.
Somebody has to yield to you. Alderman Walker, do you yield?
Yes.
We talked about that construction access entrance. You know, we're proceeding to try to get that, but if we can't, I mean, that doesn't need to be a condition. And if we can't get it, I'll get something in writing saying that person won't give it to us because we can't force them to give us an easement. We don't need that to hold up a $65 million.
I'll make that as a friendly amendment if Alderman Walker will accept it.
So what is the amendment?
That
I'll either get an easement or I'll get a letter.
Mr. Moore, you're out of order.
the amendment would be that Mr. Moore will either secure the easement or will secure a letter from the property owner's attorney saying that the easement will not be granted because it's private property and we can't eminent domain it.
So are we saying, so just to clarify, so are we saying that condition is now going to be that the applicant will provide a letter stating that there will be from the property owner to the north?
Either granting permission or denying permission.
Do we want to give a date on that? Because right now, where this is a rezoning, they're not even going through design review at this point. Preliminary talks have occurred, but I think while I do believe that is something that may not be within our control, I feel much more comfortable with that being in there because ideally, while there isn't as much maybe traffic on the road, and we can argue the points of the traffic study also showed that Creamery Lane, which has gates on it constantly, is not an actual street, was a primary road of ingress egress. So there's some issue with the traffic study. I'm willing to look past that, all right, and say that I do believe that having ingress egress for construction traffic and keeping that off University Drive is really important. If all you have to do is drive down Russell Street or Spring Street these days, and when you see the scale of those buildings that are being built, what that has done, what that construction traffic has done for those streets, and to have that for a project of this size, all of that construction traffic being on University Drive would be at best problematic and at worst a significant problem for our development and access from east to west. So I would love for that condition to stay. I am willing to say, if you can't get it, bring us a letter saying we can't get it and here's why, and I'm willing to look at it at that point. But I'm much more comfortable with that condition being in there at this point.
All right, can someone either write that down or say it really slowly so I and the clerk can write it down?
I think where we are, Mr. Mayor, is that Mr. Walker hasn't accepted the amendment as friendly. So, right?
And there's technically no friendly amendment process. That's why I always ask if there's an objection.
So if
Just
there's
short circuits the process of going all the way through an amendment discussion. So, Alderman Maynard, are you contemplating proposing an amendment?
I think I had one on the table, yes, and I don't.
Can you say it again? So,
It looks like the clerk has transcribed something. Let's read that and see if that works.
That Mr. Moore will secure an easement or a letter from the property owner granting or denying that easement within the next 30 days.
And which,
go ahead, what were you saying?
do you have a number of days you'd like to be in it?
I think, let's see, what's today? I would say 60 days.
60 days.
Okay.
Otherwise, as read, in which condition would that replace?
Replace, I would say I would tag that, not replace, but tag that to number 4.
All right, so I'll ask the clerk to read the condition as it would stand in its entirety.
All construction traffic shall use the egress from College View Drive with Mr. Moore to secure easement or present a letter from property owner either granting or denying permission within 60 days.
All right, Alderman Walker, do you wish to?
Yes, I can accept that.
Do you wish to? Let's just do it as an amendment to your motion. Without objection? All right, seeing no objection, the motion has been so amended, and Alderman Maynard still has the floor, and then Alderman Perkins will have it next.
Yield the floor.
Alderman Perkins.
Mr. Attorney, let me make sure I understand. The gentleman from Ford said that his amendment about the construction is not to be replaced, so that condition's still there.
Yes, and it's tagged by the language that Alderman Maynard just suggested.
And this language, just being clear for the record, this language here is just in addition to what is already there.
Correct. As the city clerk read it in its entirety, yes, sir.
Right, so there still has to be a construction easement.
Or a letter saying that he couldn't get it, per that added language.
So if he can't get it, then the construction traffic goes on University Drive?
Correct.
Is that your intent, gentlemen?
That is not what I want to happen. I do realize as well that that is private property to the north. I also am very hopeful that at some point there will be a connection that is that benefits all those landowners, which I believe that it does. So I believe that if every good faith effort is made to secure that easement, I think it would look very, I think that would be very favorable. Not securing that easement, I think is very problematic. I think having, I know that you've had attempts, from what I've been told, that you've had attempts to reach that landowner. I don't know how fruitful or successful those have been, but I think if you have a time frame, what I would prefer is if that isn't able to be accomplished in 60 days, then I would like to see that come back before the board for us to make a decision on.
That's not how it's currently stated.
Let's restate it.
Let me, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
The language as it's written now incentivizes a letter of denial, just like that.
There you go.
So what I would propose, if you want to stick to your condition, they can bring it back for reconsideration, just like we've had some prior rezonings.
On that one condition.
On that one condition, they can bring it back anytime. It doesn't have to go back to the P&Z.
I'm much more comfortable with that.
All right, well, we have an amended motion. That means to amend it again, we're going to have to go through an amendment process. And this is a good example of why we shouldn't get too loose with the amendment process. So, Alderman Walker, do you wish to propose an amendment to the motion?
Yes. And the amendment is to strike the language that was previously added and keep condition number 4 as originally written.
All right, is there going to be an objection to that? All right, so the proposed amendment by Alderman Walker is to strike the amendment to condition 4 and replace it with the original condition 4. All right. Without objection. Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none. Condition 4 has been restored to its original form.
You strike out that language just to make sure it's crystal clear.
All right. Back in discussion on the main motion. Discussion. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman Wynn.
I am certainly glad that we are about to almost embrace a $65 million project for our city. This means that we can probably fully staff our police department, that presently we only have about, 58 officers? 60 for a city of this size. We should be operating at 70 officers. We have a fire department, which is fire station number 5 that's out there that is not fully staffed. We have a school district that needs some money. We need this to happen for our city. It will place us on the map. This should not have taken this long tonight. I'm ready for us to vote so we can move on. I'm exhausted.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of Alderman Walker's motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Alderman Walker, you have the floor.
One more motion. Move approval to rezone parcel 101C-00-002.00 from T4 to T5 with a specific finding that an error occurred in January 2012 when the subject property was rezoned to T4 as part of the Transect District. The subject parcel and one other parcel are the only lots in this neighborhood to be zoned T4 west of Camp Avenue, and therefore an error has occurred that needs to be addressed to ensure orderly planned growth. Same 5 conditions. 1, in addition to the site being required to meet all requirements of the current stormwater ordinance, post-development runoff shall not exceed pre-development runoff at the point of sub-basin discharge for a 2 and 10-year event. 2, minimum block length width of 200 feet by 200 feet. Maximum block width length of 400 feet by 400 feet. Maximum lot size of 120-foot width by 220-foot depth. All construction traffic shall use the ingress/egress from College View Drive. And 5, Camp Avenue shall be brought into compliance with city street standards.
All right, motion has been made. It's been reduced to writing. Since it's been read and reduced to writing without objection, I will not ask for it to be reread. Seeing none, do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Walker, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. All right, without objection, I'm going to take us into a brief recess. Any objection? Meeting will now come back to order. Next matter on the agenda is a discussion and consideration of request for VA 16-01.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve a request for VA 16-01 for a variance requested by Ramsey Partners LP from right-of-way and road requirements for Adelaide Subdivision Phase 1 with the parent parcel numbers 105-15-007 and 105-22-001 as presented. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is the discussion and consideration of PP 1601.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve of PP 1601 for preliminary plat request by Ramsey Partners LP for the Adelaide Phase 1 subdivision with the parent parcel numbers 105-15-007 and 105-22-001. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Saying none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is the discussion and consideration for PP 16-03.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve of the request for PP 1603 and FP 1602 for preliminary plat and final plat approval for an 11-lot subdivision named East Creek, located at the northwest corner of the intersection of Garrett Road and Old West Point Road in a B1 zone with parent parcel number 117C-00-036.01. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second? Motion been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Maynard, you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion, any discussion, any discussion, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is discussion consideration of the request for PP 16-04 and FP 16-03. Discussion. Motion has been made by Alderman Little to approve of a request for PP 16-04 and FP 16-03 for preliminary plat and final plat approval for lot subdivision on the west side of Bluefield Road, plus minus 0.4 miles south Highway 12 in an R1 zone with parent parcel numbers 104-18-001 and 104-18-001.03 as presented. Alderman Little, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second? Motion been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Little, you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion, any discussion, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is a discussion and consideration to advertise the board-approved assistant city planner position. A motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to approve of the advertisement of the board-approved assistant city planner position on the American Planning Association Mississippi chapter of the Mississippi Planning Association websites as presented. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Maynard, you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion, any discussion, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
By a vote of, I've got everybody in favor and Perkins against. Is there anybody else that was against? By a vote of 6 in favor, 1 against, this motion passes. The next matter on the agenda is the motion has been made by Alderman Carver to approve of the annual special event Touch a Truck sponsored by Volunteer Starkville to be held from April 23rd, 2016 from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. with cost to the city of $3,100 in in-kind services as presented. Alderman Carver, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Carver, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion, any discussion, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. And Ms. Bachman, I'm sorry, it was a little bit anticlimactic, but you got what you wanted. The next matter on the agenda is Alderman Carr's made a motion to approve of the City of Starkville claims docket for all departments, including the Starkville Utilities Department as of February 10th, 2016, for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2016, as presented. Alderman Carver, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Carver, you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion, any discussion, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. By a vote of 5 in favor with 2 against, this motion passes. Next matter on the agenda is approval of the 2016 financial statement. Motion's been made by Alderman Maynard to approve the January 2016 financial statements as presented. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Maynard, you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion, any discussion, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is request for authorization to re-advertise fill a vacant position of deputy clerk payroll in the finance administration department. Discussion.
So moved.
Motion been made by Alderman Maynard to authorize the re-advertisement to fill the vacant position of deputy clerk payroll in the finance administration department as presented. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Maynard, you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion, any discussion, any discussion? Saying none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
By a vote of 6 in favor with 1 against, this motion passes. The next matter on the agenda is request for approval to purchase the fire service commercial washer and dry cleaning and maintenance for firefighter turnout gear at an approximate cost of $12,002.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Alderman Nguyen to approve of the purchase of fire service commercial washer and dry for cleaning and maintenance of firefighter turnout gear at an approximate cost of $12,002 as presented. Alderman Nguyen, is that your motion?
Yes, it is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Nguyen, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, I do
Any
not.
discussion, any discussion, any discussion? Yes.
This is something we've never had, this type of cleaning, washer dryer type. You know, the cities around us, is this something new to the area, or are we gonna be like one of the first, or can you tell?
Unfortunately, you know, we have,
Or the last?
but the volunteer department right here is just, has a washer dryer, we've been actually using this to get our gear washed, so it'd be the first for us to have the city, so it's something we must need.
Discussion, Alderman Nguyen.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the board, let me say this to you. Back in October, when I went to the fire academy with you, this is when I learned about these, and we are certainly not the first city to have. As a matter of fact, they were walking up to us after break saying that we were from the city of Starkville. They couldn't believe that we didn't have these. So I'm so glad that the board is supporting you tonight, because what I learned about them, when you all bring your gear in from a fire, you all spray it with some type of retard, some type of spray or something that you use. And as a result of that, it doesn't necessarily get rid of all of the chemicals, and by doing so, using this method, that avoids maybe cancer that could be exposed to, your employees could be exposed to. Okay, thank you, Mayor, yield the floor.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passed. Next matter on the agenda is request for authorization to hire 2 full-time drivers in sanitation and environmental services department. Motion has been made by, was it Little? Alderman Little to hire 2 temporary full-time drivers in the sanitation and environmental services department as presented. Alderman Little, such a motion.
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been seconded by Alderman Maynard. Alderman Little, you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is a request for permission to allow step. Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard. Was it Maynard? Vaughn. A motion has been made by Alderman Vaughn to allow Stephanie Halbert to attend the 21st Annual Mississippi Human Resource Conference and Expo, May 16th through 18th, 2016 in Biloxi, Mississippi, with advanced travel not to exceed $900 as presented. Alderman Vaughn, such a motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been seconded by Alderman Maynard. Alderman Vaughn, you wish to speak on the merits? Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is a request for permission motion has been made by Alderman Vaughn to allow Stephanie Halbert to attend the Human Resource Law Seminar, April 8, 2016, in Jackson, Mississippi, with advanced travel not to exceed $335 as presented. Alderman Vaughn, such a motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Vaughn, you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is request for permission to allow Joanna Breland to, a motion has been made by Alderman Vaughn to allow Joanna Breland to complete an internship with the city of Starkville as presented. Alderman Vaughn, such a motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second? Motion been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Vaughn, you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is a request for approval to allow Corporal Charlie Jones and Officer Andrew Jenkins to attend a 4-day class. Motion has been made by Alderman Carver to allow Corporal Charlie Jones and Officer Andrew Jenkins to attend a 4-day less lethal instructor course, which will be held at Oxford Police Department from June 20th through June 23rd at a cost of $895 per officer as presented. Alderman Carver, is that your motion? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Carver, you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is a discussion. Motion has been made by Alderman Carver to allow Assistant Chief John C. Thomas to attend the FBI National Academy Associates in Mississippi Spring Chapter Conference, March 10th through 11th, 2016 in Pearl, Mississippi, with advanced travel not to exceed $300 as presented. Alderman Carver, set your motion.
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Carver, you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion?
Very briefly, Chief Nichols, I want to commend your assistant chief on this. I looked at his expenditures. He's gonna be down tonight. His hotel is $89. So he was very conservative with his spending. He wasn't trying to stay in a 5-star hotel. And but it was $89. I want to commend him for that. He did a great job with his expenses. Just pass that on to the assistant chief. Thank you,
Yes,
Mayor.
sir, we do our best in the police department.
Y'all doing it. Keep doing it. Thank you, Chief.
And the fire department didn't get any compliments for using the volunteer fire department to watch their turnout uniform.
Well, we'll catch that next time.
All right, we hadn't had a vote on that yet, have we?
No,
Any
sir.
discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Saying none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is request for approval of Tri-State Truck Center. Motion's been made by Alderman Carver to approve of Tri-State Truck Center to repair the 2012 Mack front loader garbage truck in the amount of $10,175.28 as presented. Alderman Carver, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Carver, do you wish to speak on the matter?
No, sir.
Any discussion?
I got a question. Miss Kenny, why is this truck not under warranty?
I can't answer that. This was a purchase prior to my arrival. This truck actually, arrived, I want to say in April, prior to my getting to the department in September. So this was made under the previous administration, but it is, these charges, and fees and repair were not going to go for
You have verified that it's not under warranty.
We asked them that, asked that question when they sent up the first, when they submitted when we took it down here. This truck has been in and out of the shop, and if you recall, when I came to the board to replace the two old trucks, this is not the old truck. The two old trucks were 2006 and 2007. And this was the newer truck. It had been in the shop several times also. This truck has been back to Alabama twice, two kilometers, and so the nearest dealer, instead of taking it all the way back to Alabama, will take two little trucks in there.
Can you research the existing warranty on that vehicle and send a response to the board? Thank you, Ms. Candy. Alderman Manager, do you have further questions? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, Alderman Burke.
No, I'm ready to vote.
Oh, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. Next matter on the agenda is a request for authorization to accept bid submitted by Alltech, sole bidder, and purchase a 55-foot material handling bucket truck with chassis at a cost of. A motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to accept the bid submitted by Alltech, the sole bidder, and purchase a 55-foot material handling bucket truck with chassis at a cost of $187,879, which includes a $5,500 trade-in allowance for service bucket truck number 34 as presented. Alderman Maynard, such a motion? Yes, sir. Do I hear a second? Second. Motion been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Maynard, you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion clearly passes. And now, a motion to adjourn is in order.
I got one. No, go ahead.
We're still not adjourned.
What you want to say?
No, I'm good. Motion to adjourn.
Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to adjourn until March 1st, 2016 at 5:30 in the courtroom located at City Hall at 110 West Main Street. Alderman Maynard, that's your motion? Do I hear a second? Second. Motion's been seconded by Alderman Walker. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. We stand and adjourn.
All right. Feature under?
10:30.